9 o'clock. We have an appointment together, and because we respect you and we respect everyone's time, we're going to get started. Welcome, BJ Armstrong, today with 6 personal perspectives.
That's a great introduction. Thank you. I mean, she's supposed to tell you about how awesome I am and all these great things. It sounds like an obituary when they announce speakers, right? But
we'll just find out how awesome you are through today, right? Like, we'll drop little
that's
notes.
exactly right. Obviously, even as I talk through the, go around the room and talk to you guys, the expectations are high, right? So I've got already been challenged on, hey, I'm missing opening day, and I need to fix my husband, so teach me something that will be worthwhile, right? So, expectations are high, and hopefully we get there with some of you. But the truth is, there's two ways to view this course, right? One is just a life, right? How do you live a big life? And we're going to get into a lot of those conversations. And I want the conversation today to be a little more direct than that. Right, so when we go through the 6 perspectives, we're going to talk through these ways that you can live a big life, but we really want to get also deeply involved with how do you have a big real estate career, right? So I do want to focus this a little more from just being this kind of generic, hey, let's go have a big life and think big things, to how do we actually do big things, right? So hopefully we can get into that. Now, 2 things that I need to know a little bit of kind of who we're dealing with, right? So I don't know if we got new agents. Are you new to Keller Williams? Have you been here before? Have you been through this class? So who's actually listened through 6 perspectives before? You guys been through this? So about maybe a third of us, right? So for a lot of us, this is going to be new material, which is really, really fun. I've been through the 6 perspectives probably 20 times, right, with other instructors, and I love it every single time. Who was I talking to you this morning about? Somebody was talking about how much they just love there we go. Love the 6 perspectives, and I'm with you, right? It's just something that resonates with me every time. And every time I do it, I come out in a different place and going, okay, here's what's next for me. So hopefully something speaks to you, and we'll get to that maybe in a little bit of a minute. All right, so now about time in the industry. Any brand new agents in here?
Brand new.
A year or less? All right, so several, right? Is this scary yet? Okay, good. Everybody loves real estate. It's fulfilling all of their dreams. So 2 years? How long have you been in the business?
Year and 2 months.
All right, so almost, well, just barely over a year. So 2 years or less. Several? A couple. Right? So then there's a 5-year crowd, right? And I don't even need to speak to the 5-year crowd because you all got it figured out already, right? I mean, after the first year, real estate is easy, right? I've been doing this for, I don't count the number of years. All I can tell you is I started in 1993, right? And I don't count the number of years because it is that depressing, right? And yes, this is the first job that I had out of college, and yes, this is the only job I've ever had. So real estate has been very, very good to me. I did have some head starts. My family was in a brokerage business, so some people I say I was the son of a broker, and that's accurate. But so I grew up in the business. I grew up also in construction and development. So those are themes that carry through my career, right? So I have a sales team. My team's right up here in front, actually. So Jessie is my Kate, for what it's worth. And I don't know if Kate ever gets enough recognition in this place. I'm sure that she does. But of all the Keller Williams offices I've ever visited, Kate is by far the most talented person that I've seen in any market center anywhere. Seriously, she is fantastic. So thank you, Kate, for everything you do. She makes this super easy for us. So anyway, Jesse's my Kate, and Frank actually is our new guy. We're actually working. He is a candidate for a project manager in my construction company today. So it's fun to have him here and kind of see where we go. But that's a little bit about me. What I really want to know is a little bit about you guys. So let's start with, why did you get into real estate? So, this is very an open forum, by the way. So I do not intend to stand up here and just preach at you until 2 o'clock. I am capable. I just don't want to. So, why did you get into real estate?
I was working in the corporate world, residential leasing under the military housing umbrella. We were working anywhere from 60, 70 hours a week with no manpower, no budget. The residents were unhappy. We were unhappy. I had people having nervous breakdowns and decided to leave corporate to go private.
Wow.
decision I ever made.
Best decision she ever made. Who else? Why'd you get into real estate?
I went into real estate so I could write my own schedule and to go to my son's every one of his sporting events and still make money.
Yep.
Yeah, we got into real estate with my wife. She thought it'd be a good idea for us to spend more time together. That was about 7 years
Yeah,
ago.
she's
We
not
spent
here.
a lot of time.
She sent him here. She's like, you need to go.
I need to go.
You should go listen to that.
That's what he said.
I love it. Go ahead.
Real estate, my father listed my parents' house they bought, about 6 months after they bought it. And he said to me, that girl was so nice that came here, you could do that. And subsequently, he died the next day. So as a tribute to him, that's how I actually started, was
Wow.
like, hey, I'll give it a shot. You know, my dad said, cool, and I was like, God, he's always right. And I never regretted it, so.
That's great.
I was managing a furniture store and I did all the in-home design, and being in the house and talking to people about their houses, I just felt called to sell the whole thing then. It's just the belongings inside.
Absolutely. That's fine.
Because my mom told me to.
That's mom. I cannot disobey.
Right, and but it kind of has morphed, and part of the reason why she told me is because to help others build generational wealth
Yeah.
through real estate. And so she herself was like, I want to do some deals, and I want you to be my agent. And I'm like, okay, mom. But now she's an agent, so.
She hit on a unique one. You hear, she hit it in there, but it was help others, right? So that showed up in there. This question I've asked in pretty much every class I've ever taught. And there are always three answers that show up when people say, why did I get into real estate? And you heard these themes in here. You heard one that was freedom. Hey, I was working a government job and we were working 70 hours a week, and it was horrible, right? So there was something about this kind of freedom, or there's something about having some extra time, or doing this on my own, or being my own boss, right? So there's something to, I would call freedom, I would call being your own boss, I would call entrepreneurship. There's just I'm going to work for me, nobody else, right? There is no man in my world. So I get it. Freedom is one of them.
I don't understand.
You touched on it. She touched on it and said, I want to help others, right? Help others build generational wealth is what she said. Not wrong. There's a whole group of people that come in and say, hey, I just did it for the people. I love people and I love houses. And so why wouldn't I do this thing? Why wouldn't I help them? If I can furnish their house, I can help them buy a house, right? It's about people. There's one that nobody mentioned in here. Say it. Money. Are you kidding me? When none of you came in here and said, hey, I can get rich selling real estate. Somebody, I did. I'm not even joking. Right? So when I was in college, if you'd asked me in college what I was going to be a stockbroker, right? Remember, I was in high school and college in the late 80s, early 90s. So this was the Wall Street era. You remember the movie Wall Street, right? That was my absolute favorite movie of all time. Why? Yes. Why? Because they were making a lot of money, right? I mean, that was the deal. So when I got into real estate, my family had been in it. Rather than go to Wall Street, I'm like, why wouldn't I go into the family business, right? What happened to me, right, is that you learn about these other pieces. So at some point in your career, you're going to land on all three of these and go, hey, I want them all three. Here's the real question now. How's it going? Who got into this job and figured out they got all kinds of freedom? You did? That's congratulations, right?
Total sarcasm.
I don't know about you. Okay, thank you. Because I'm like, holy cow, right? Would you come up here? Because you know what I discovered is that, man, there is no freedom in this job. Well, how much freedom do we have, Jesse?
It's 8 to 5 every day.
It's 8 to 5 every day, she says.
8 to 5 at the office and then 5 to 9.
I mean, I know better because I get text messages from her at 9 p.m. with stuff going on, right? So, people. Now, I know nobody in this group has shown a house in the last week and come back to the office and said, oh my gosh, right? You would never believe. They had their parents in that house. I'm never showing them another house. But I got in this job for the people. I just love people. Right? You know, we've all done it. So, it's a good thing that even though neither of these are making up for it, right? It's a good thing we're making so much money that it just covers up everything else, right? Because with enough money, I can get over mean people all day long if I'm making enough money. So it's a good thing we're making all getting rich, right? Who's getting rich? You are. See? Congratulations. Here's the challenge, right? Most of us land in a spot where we're working more hours than we've ever dreamed that we were able to work, right? No, I certainly never wanted to. I'm already signed up to work all weekend, by the way. I find out that people are mean, and most of the time I come back to the office complaining about the clients that are actually paying me and choosing me to do this work. And at the end of the month, I'm looking around going, holy cow, right? What I really want is a sailboat in the Caribbean, and you know what? I'm not getting closer to having that kind of dream. Realizing those things, right? So how are we doing? Now, I don't put you here to get you into a state of going, oh my gosh, yeah, real estate sucks. This guy's right. Right? That's not the goal. The goal is to realize where we are, get to this spot of reality and say, hey, you know what? You're right. What is it that's caused me not to be here? Right? And so we at Keller Williams have this really unique opportunity because this guy came along back in the early 80s named Gary Keller. You've probably heard of him. Right? And he developed this thing called the 6 Perspectives. And he actually wrote this class because he realized that there's a whole bunch of people in this industry that are not realizing their dreams. Right? And so what he did is he said, hey, why is it that one agent can go work 50 hours a week and just struggle all of their career, and there's another one that becomes a multimillionaire and becomes everything that they wanted to be? What's the difference between these two people? So what Gary Keller did, he goes out and he interviewed a whole bunch of executives, a whole bunch of top real estate agents, in an effort to discover how it is that they think. What are the thoughts and behaviors that separate them from the rest of the kind of mediocre agents? And what we came up with is the 6 Perspectives. Right? So it turns out there are 6 things. I'm horrible with the slides, by the way, so but I'll do my best to keep ahead of this. Could you make it the side arrow? That seems more intuitive.
Did it work?
Kind of. There it goes.
It goes to sleep, I think.
All right, so here's the deal. Gary Keller figured out in doing this research that there's 3 things that help us define the 6 perspectives.
We're hooking up a mouse just in case.
Oh, you're right. I know it.
We got you.
One is your mindset. What are the things about our mindsets that make us operate? This is our operating system, if you will. Everybody done Bold? Bold going on right now? No? Coming maybe again in the fall or whenever it is, right? October, perfect. Right, but Bold, you know this if you've been through it, right? Very much a mindset class. How do you get your mind right? Because that operating system we have really, really matters. It affects our attitudes. Right? When my attitude becomes, hey, I hate these people that I'm working with, all of a sudden, right, my whole world changes, right? And it does. It affects everything that happens to me, including when I go home to my husband. I know not you. What's your name again?
Julie.
Julie, all right. Sorry, I am going to pick on you for that. All of these things affect your approach to life, right? So Gary Keller says mindset is key. If you're looking at page, these don't have page numbers. Do you see that? Anybody want to read that? Anybody read that mindset blurb at the bottom?
Mindset is key.
Yes. You want to read it?
Yeah. Gary said, when you interview the very top people and ask them what their biggest challenge is, invariably they will tell you it is mindset. Keeping it strong, focused, and positive amid the many challenges they encounter every day on their way to the top. That is a very long run-on sentence. Gary continued. I'm sorry.
I didn't know you were an English professor too, right?
I'm sorry. Gary continues, life is an inside to the outside experience. When you get this at a deep level, you realize that who you are inside determines and drives what you are outside. The very best achievers know this and therefore truly work on and protect their mindset. I love that last sentence.
What do you get out of that?
mindset.
Protect your mindset. You know what else I get out of it is I go build a better one, right? If I could be a Microsoft operating system versus an Apple operating system, which one do I want to be? I mean, I know which one I want to be, right? But you're going to choose because one of them is a better operating system than the other. You get to upgrade whenever you want. Ours is no different, right? We get an opportunity to upgrade. Question is, right? Who of us will accept that opportunity? Who of us will accept the challenge? Right? So this is where the 6 perspectives show up. So here's what we're going to talk about a little more in depth today. One is we're going to do this thing called commit to self-mastery. Now we're going to talk pretty in depth about what self-mastery is. But anybody have an idea of what self-mastery is?
Becoming an expert in whatever that skill, field, system is.
Becoming an expert. I like that, right? To be a master, it's no accident that the Masters starts today, right? I mean, of all things that I got to give up today was watching the first round of the Masters tournament. The Masters, they are a very select group of people that have mastered this game, right? Tiger Woods is going to be out there again. We'll see if he's still a master or not. We're going to find out. But anyway, a master says, hey, I'm going to nail it, right? And I'm going to master this task. 80-20 principle. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Maybe you've heard it referred to as the Pareto principle, but who can say it?
20% of your effort yields 80% of your results.
20% of our efforts, 20% of our activities gives us 80% of our results. 20% of the agents in this room are producing 80% of the GCI. Ouch. Right? That's a pretty common thing. So we're going to talk about that in depth. Move from E to P. It's always a popular one. Anybody know what it means?
Move from entrepreneurial to purposeful.
Entrepreneurial to purposeful. I've also heard it recently called go from easy to painful. And I believe that that's not wrong, right? That resonated with me. I'm like, holy cow, somebody finally got it right. I'm purposeful about breaking through the ceiling of achievement. So we're going to talk about our lids and the artificial ceilings that we create in terms of our performance and our achievement. Oops, I gave you a hint on the being learning based. I have been in this business. I've owned the Keller office in Bloomington for 14 years now, and I am shocked. I recruited the owner of the Remax franchise in Bloomington, and so he wasn't the owner at the time. Obviously, he had sold it. We recruited him into Keller Williams, and he came in, and you know what he told me? He goes, you're not going to teach me anything. I don't need to go to your trainings. I've been doing this for 30 years. I got this thing. You're not going to teach me anything. Okay. And you know what? He's not with us anymore. Seriously, he didn't last that long. All right. Limiting beliefs. What do you think of when you think of limiting beliefs?
That you can't do something.
I can't do something. Absolutely. And those go deep, and they're often very, very hard to identify. So hopefully, we're going to get an opportunity to talk through those. I unlimit my thinking. So that's our real goal: is how do we get to an unlimiting belief? Accountability. What do you think of when you think of accountability? Responsibility. Integrity. Support. Man, I'm the unique one because what I think of when it comes to accountability is my mother chasing me with the yardstick. So that was accountability in my world growing up. But yes, be accountable. We're going to talk about methods and ways that we can do this in a way that's really real, that we get to own it, that we get to have responsibility for it, that we get to create this integrity around the things that we promise. These make sense, right? It's not rocket science, obviously, but honestly, it ain't easy, right? So there's a lot of stuff we're going to cover now. As you think through those, I don't know if you think about stuff automatically that you go, hey, here's something that I need to work on. We'll help discover that, I think, as we go. The real challenge is going to be, how do we relate this to our real business, right? Because, like I say, I can just apply these principles to my life generically and say, hey, here's how I'm a better person. What I really want to be today is a better real estate agent. I want to get closer to these dreams and these goals that say, hey, this is why I got in this business in the first place. So, on page 11, you're going to see this, where it's, what 3 things would you like to accomplish in your life? And this is where it gets a little heady, because you can choose something to put on these 3 goals that's pretty easy. Or you can put on something on these that's very real that says, hey, you know what? I'm going to have to become somebody a little bit different in order to achieve these things. And so my challenge is always, am I thinking big enough to actually put this stuff down where I can apply these things and get a little bit closer to becoming who I was created to be? I don't know. But we're gonna take a minute and see if we can figure out, write 3 things that you would like to be, do, or achieve in your life. Now these may be a real estate goal. This may be that you want to sell X number of units this year. This may be that in the next 5 years you want this. I mentioned a boat in the Caribbean. That's a very real goal of mine. I have a very specific goal, so I might write, hey, I'm going to have a boat in the Caribbean in 5 years. Something, right? For some of us, these are very easy, and some of us, these are very difficult. They're easy for you.
That's why we're partners.
She gets to dream and you get to do. Is that the way it works? Schedule that for next week too. Anybody struggling to come up with something? She's way ahead of me.
Wait, you me to go back or?
Oh, I don't know. This is good. Self-mastery. That's what we want to talk about, right? We really want to talk about what is this thing called self-mastery, right? This is it's kind of a weird, hard thing to wrap our brains around, right? The textbook answer for Keller says that self-mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. What does that mean?
Awareness.
Awareness. Tell me more.
So, kind of using the example about the things you're ignoring, like when you know what you ignore, you're more aware, and so you can work on either delegating that task out or not ignoring it.
How good are we at ignoring the things about ourselves that we don't like, right? I'm a master at that, by the way. So I have mastered something. Self. That word self shows up in there, right? This is about self-mastery, right? It's about you being the master of you. Because Jessie, no. My wife likes to think that she's the master of me, right? My wife likes to come along all the time and say, yeah, I'm going to master you, right? No, I'm just playing. But, right? This is not about me versus somebody else. This is about me versus me. Right? How do I become? There's a process in here that I would look at and say, there's a process of discovery that shows up in here. Meaning, you have to know who you are. I always think, right, there's always the common movies theme, right, that says something about, I'm going to take a year and go discover myself. I never really knew what that meant, right? I always felt like I had this pretty good idea of who I am. Other than the fact that I'm very good at ignoring those things that say, hey, this is who you were created to be, this is just who I am. And so there's this big gap. Somewhere in there, right, mastery shows up as the, hey, I see the gap, right? Outliers. You've heard about this book called from Malcolm Gladwell? Anybody read it? All right, Outliers, basically, he goes through this whole book, and he takes all of these different people that he would say are masters in his career, so chess players, for example, and he would say, what makes this chess player so good? this violinist so good, right? How do you get onto a national stage? An Olympic athlete, how do they become so good? Do you know what the secret?
They know what they're bad at.
10,000 hours. He basically he's the one that came up with a number that said, hey, after about 10,000 hours, you become a master. What's it mean to be a master? For the most part, we all look at those people and go, man, that's easy for them. That's kind of how you identify it, right? Anybody ever look at Ginger and go, man, her life is easy, right? How did she got all this? That's easy, right? 100%, I promise you, it happens. I had a long time ago, I built a new development, and one of my high school classmates wrote a letter to the editor in the newspaper that said, I went to high school with BJ, and everything's always been easy for him. This is no surprise. And I'm like, what is that? Here's the deal about easy. You have no idea. The truth is, I probably work harder and more hours than anybody else in Bloomington, right? So it's just kind of the way it is. That 10,000 hours is a real thing, right? So the more you do it, the more you practice it. Not just about doing it. There's this whole conversation that comes about practice versus perfect practice. Ever heard that? What's the difference between practice and perfect practice?
Practice is when you're just sitting there doing it and going through the motion, as opposed to perfect practice where you're paying attention to what your weaknesses are and specifically practicing those.
Perfect practice is about doing it the right way. Do you have any idea why we talk about scripts in Keller Williams? Did I tell you that I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't need to do script practice? Do you know why? I have my script, I got them. The problem is that I didn't practice them perfectly. And so do you know what happens to my scripts? They become imperfect, right? So do you wonder the reason that I don't achieve at the level of another real estate agent? Right, I promise you, much of it is script practice. Because I practiced it and learned it and I mastered it the way that I wanted to master it, not the way that book was going to tell me to do it. That sounds weird. You never said that, have you? I'm just saying, there's something about perfect practice, there's something about mastery. Now, knowing these traits about yourself is hugely important, right? So we get in this conversation about strengths and weaknesses. Have you ever read Strengthsfinder? Yeah, right, we all did, right? You know what I love about Strengthsfinder? It tells me, worry about your strengths, don't worry about your weaknesses. You know what I love about that? I don't have to fix anything. Anybody like that? You know what that means? That Jesse gets to fix everything else. All I got to do is just be awesome at what I'm awesome at, and Jesse gets to do everything else. How's that work for me, Jesse? Yeah. She reminds me often. But this is true, right? Because I have landed on, and much of the world has landed on, hey, this is all about a strengths conversation. All I got to do is go be strong. I don't ever have to worry about where I'm weak. Not true. This is about knowing the differences, because I cannot achieve these highest levels without knowing those weaknesses. Now, it doesn't mean that I have to be the most awesome, most organized person in the world. Or do I? Did you ever know somebody that was super, super wealthy that didn't know how to read a P&L at the end of the month? I don't know any. Here's my answer to that. You cannot become super, super wealthy without knowing how financials work, period. What's that mean to you?
You take an action step to learn to read a P&L.
Here you go. Take an action step to learn to read a P&L, right? Take an action step to produce one. I know everybody in this room produces one, but I would tell you that 99% of real estate agents have no idea what a profit and loss statement is. Right? And so my challenge is, that is a weakness. I promise you, until that weakness is overcome, you cannot arrive at a high level of, you can't arrive at wealth, you can't arrive even at passive income. So there are certain things that just are not optional. Organization, simply not optional in my world. I'm not the most organized person in the world. Right? It's not okay. I've reached a point in my life where I just land on, I have to do this. You know what? It's hard and it hurts. It's the difference between mastery and, I don't know what the opposite of mastery is. Mediocrity? This makes sense. How do we get there? Pieces of the puzzle. if we're in real estate, what are the things you have to master? Time. Tell me more.
There's a lot of things that have to get done in a day, and you got to be able to manage the time efficiently to find out what's most important.
What's most important? But the hardest thing about being a real estate agent is priorities, right? But without a doubt, right? And I'm telling you, after 30 years, still my problem. Without a doubt, how do you master your time? What is the most important part of your time? Everybody know the seven, well, we'll get into 20% of real estate agents in the 80-20 rule. What's the number one thing you can do with your time? Come on, give me Jesus. Yes, thank you. Lead generation. You all know it, right? And the truth is that we all fail to do it because we all know that if we actually did it, our business would be wildly off the charts, including me. All right, so strengths and weaknesses. We've talked about that a little bit. We have to plan. We have to plan for mastery. How would you plan for that?
If you know that something is one of your weaknesses, then you're going to have to take extra steps in order to accomplish it.
Extra steps in order to accomplish it.
You're going to have to suck it up and realize that that's the thing that you have to do.
Suck it up and realize that thing you have to do. I like it. She's right. You do have to get tough at some point. You know what the two dirtiest words are in, I think in America today, but certainly in Keller Williams? Almost never do you hear anybody talk about these. Do you know them, Jesse? Do you remember them? Discipline and willpower. Nobody likes to talk about those, right? Because they're the hard ones, right? People are like, oh, well, that sounds like work. Sorry, but I hear that when you talk, so thank you for that, because I think it's true, right? We do have to land on some level of discipline and willpower in order to achieve these. Now, as soon as we set this up and say, hey, I'm going to go do all these great things, and hey, I heard BJ say I needed to have a P&L, so I'm going to figure out how to have a profit and loss statement. Maybe I'll go study it, whatever else. Here's some things I'm going to implement. This is the action I'm going to take. Guess what happens? The world shows up as soon as you set that goal. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you ever notice that I did a detox a couple of weeks ago? And it was like 1 week of no eating. It was the most dreadful thing in the world. But did you notice that as soon as you commit to doing something like that, somebody will call and say, hey, we're having this big pizza party tonight, and it's like, what? I should have started tomorrow. Right, but did you ever notice, I mean, the world shows up as soon as you commit to doing something big. And I don't know what's going to show up in your life, but I promise you something's going to show up. As soon as I set up a goal to say, I'm going to go have this boat, and here's how much it's going to cost, and I'm going to save this much money this year, a great opportunity shows up and says, hey, you can buy this apartment building, it only costs this much. And I go, oh, well, I could use that boat fund money to go do that. That's a better choice anyway. The world shows up. More to identify what those obstacles might be. Page 21. What obstacles might show up that are going to hinder your action, to hinder you to your goals? List 3 objectives that you think might hinder your success. Facebook may be one of them. I don't know for you.
Family needs you.
Parenting.
Family needs you. Oh my gosh. Yes, because that will affect how much time you have to spend. That will affect all kinds of things. Absolutely.
So I got one. So my goal, as I shared earlier, is $35,000 per month. And every time I sit down and I look at every month, something new pops in my mind. A new development comes up and says, hey, you want to invest in this? I'm like, oh man, or crypto. It's like, I'm going to do this. I always have to say no, because there's no quick way to get to where I want to go. But they appear to be quick.
I love you for saying that, because I'm the biggest opportunity junkie you will ever meet. And so what happens to me, what derails me more than anything, is a new opportunity. I will chase every shiny new object, every shiny new project. I will go after them all day long and never finish the old one. It's good. Identifying those obstacles, absolutely hugely important. Because now that you have them, right, now that you have that in your sights, you can at least go, hey, when that shows up, I have to run it back through this filter and say, here's why I am or not going to pursue that.
Had he not set that goal and put the plan, the SMART goal in place though, he wouldn't have his own measure to play red light, green light, and say, nope, that doesn't fit with the plan. He
Absolutely.
does, so he's self-accountable.
Absolutely.
I think that's a critical skill to develop for all of us.
And I'll tell you, I've learned something, where saying that, I've learned something myself is, I can't be the accountability person. So my fiance, I run it by her, I was like, hey, I want to do this, and she always asks the question that I hate. How long is it going to take us to make our money back? I'm like, shit. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
There's your answer.
It's not measurable.
Here's a challenge. It's probably more than one. I don't know what other obstacle might show up. Opportunity might be one of them. Family might be one of them.
Yourself.
Tell me more.
You're your biggest enemy. You know, like you said, you can get sidetracked. You see a shiny nickel, bend down and pick it up, and then next thing you see a squirrel and
Right,
flying
so
off the path.
I even go to a different place. So Frank says yourself shows up, right? I am sometimes my biggest obstacle. I would tell you one of my biggest obstacles is a, I would just call it attention, right? Because I get to this spot where I'm either going to stay up late or I'm going to sleep in too late or too early, whatever else. Let's go with discipline and time, right? So how do I make sure that I go to bed at 9 o'clock so that I can wake up at 5 a.m. and be this, right? Versus go to bed at 12 o'clock and wake up at 9 o'clock and be frantic. Right, so myself, there are all kinds of habits and things that could get in the way of me achieving.
I actually just wrote that down similarly because one of my goals is to get out of the day-to-day of my business and, instead of working in it, work on it. And when you get to that, one of those obstacles is all that new free time, using it wisely, so a new use of time, not a goof-off kind of time. So that I can see getting in my way.
All right, so a book that I just finished that I absolutely love is called Deep Work. Yeah, so this is one of those boring books that I actually really enjoyed. But Deep Work is all about focus, right? This is all about how do you get yourself into 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour time blocks that you can actually really get focused. There's another book called Flow, right? It talks about these flow states where you get in. Do you ever do something and you just lose track of time and you're like, holy cow, it's 3 o'clock already? That's a flow state, right? And it takes a deep focus and a deep attention in order to get into those flows. But that, according to a lot of psychologists and economists today, would tell you is the secret to happiness. I don't know that I buy all that, but I do think that it's certainly a secret to becoming, right? And so the problems that I have today, for sure, revolve around those flow states in my attention span. No joke. I read that book and I went back to my analog watch. I mean, I've worn an Apple Watch since they came out, right? I retired this thing and said, not anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it's been interesting.
You'll need it buzzing at you all the time.
It's been crazy, right? And it's been interesting how freeing it is. I don't miss it. Anyway, thank you. Other thoughts on self-mastery?
I think self-mastery, when I teach classes, the biggest thing I hear is it comes so easy to you. I think you touched on this earlier. I think it's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle toward confidence, which is anyone new in this business or business in general, when they voice their worries or their monkeys on their shoulders of, I can't do that. And the level of confidence that comes from self-mastery, I don't know, it's essential. It's essential. It doesn't come easy to any of us. We've all done our personality assessments or what are they called? Our
KPI.
all of them. We've all done all of them, and some of us we don't rate high as mega agents or as team owners or at Market Center. But what we do is we put in that time to become a master at the skill that doesn't come natural to us, so that we can perform it at a high level. It doesn't mean it comes easy to us. Some of us are probably really not naturally talented at it, and I don't know how it is for you, BJ. You're a master trainer, obviously, but it's hard to communicate that to other people, how critical it is to invest that time in becoming self-master, and it means sacrifice, and it means doing the things you don't want to do and the things that make you uncomfortable.
Don't forget the first part of this thing. This is not just about self-mastery. What's the part that comes before it?
So,
Commit to.
commit to.
Commit to. What does it mean to commit?
Make a choice.
Choice.
Make a choice.
You're all in.
Be all in. Yeah, I mean, this is not for the faint of heart, I promise you, right? You're going to learn some things about yourself that you probably don't like. You're going to learn what you're not good at. You brought up the KPA. Thank you for that. How do we know our strengths and weaknesses, right? I brought up Strengthsfinder, which I thought was mediocre, honestly. That's me. But KPA is a powerful tool. Anybody taking the KPA in here? What'd you learn about yourself?
Exactly what are not your strengths.
Do you-
Is that you Googling?
Do you love
Yeah,
it?
that was me.
I want to know your results later.
Do you love it, right? I mean, so we've all learned the same thing about ourselves, right? What shocked me is it came out and it said, I'm a skeptic. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm an optimist.
Oh, no. Really?
See? You get to come to grips with who you really are, right? And so that challenges me to go, hey, wait a minute. What is it about me being a skeptic? How does that help me? Because I promise you it helps me in my world. How does it hurt me?
Right.
Because I promise you it hurts me in my world. Right? So now I get this, I can get to this sense of balance that says, all right, in order to become who I was created to be, who do I want to be? Who do I need to be? Who do I choose to be? Right? And once I
accept that I am, so that I can move past that.
Powerful. You have to accept who you are first. Yes, because when I read through that, I don't read judgment all over myself. Right? When you read, I've done enough KPAs, evaluated enough KPAs to see it, right? Most of the time, when you evaluate a KPA, people light up, I promise you. If we did this exercise, you would be going, yeah, that's me, right? That sounds exactly like me. We're proud of ourselves. We need to be proud of ourselves. It's a good thing, right? And then we can touch on some things where you would go, oh yeah, I'm not so good at that, am I? Right? This is how we get to know. So once you accept that reality about yourself, we get a spot to move forward to. And again, it's about choosing, identifying who you want to be, and getting there. None of us wants to be who, in 5 years, who we are today, right? Go ahead.
I think it sometimes can also make you stop pretending you are good at something that you clearly are not. Like, I took the Strengthsfinder test years ago, and the person who scored mine looked at me and was like, your results are insane, because I fell under one category, totally. And it made me realize that, like, I'm not a woo person. I'm not that. What I am is, like, a data and analytics person. I understand numbers, I understand math, I think that way, and I can really stop trying to, like, woo other people and, like, build them up. And if I need that in my life, I either have to work on it or I have to find a different way to do it. I have to find a way that works for me that isn't, you know.
I love it. Yes, it definitely gets us to a spot where we get to accept and give ourselves permission to be exactly who we are, right? So yes, we need data freaks, right? I need them all over my world, I promise you, because I am not one, right? So I think that's super powerful. Thank you. And we do get to stop faking at some point. This is a moment of being proud of who we are and stepping forward into what is possible for this person. It's good. Partner exercise. Page 23. We'll do this quick, right? But you may want to turn to your neighbor or not. Share with your partner what strengths you feel that will help you. So here's the goal of this. If you share your goal with your partner, what happens?
Accountability.
Yep.
Accountability. Does it get even different than accountability, right? Are you just a little bit nervous about sharing it?
No, I just make it so unreachable. You don't even believe that.
Okay, so your partner's going to go, yeah, you're an idiot. That guy's never going to go there, right?
Because, yeah, that works.
But so, honestly, by design, this is set up to go, hey, it should be a little bit uncomfortable, right? I'm okay with that. This is the opportunity to get a little bit comfortable being uncomfortable. So share with your neighbor what your goal is. Bigger than that, you're going to share with them two other things. One is, this is why I'm able to achieve this goal, right? Because I am a good salesperson, because I am whatever. You're also going to share them with your weaknesses, right? So you know what's going to keep me from doing this is this, right? Okay, we're going to take just a couple minutes and talk through that. Go. They're going to lose today, or no, I mean... I know, right? Or you were actually talking about your goals and strengths and weaknesses. What did you learn as you go through that exercise of sharing? Anything? Anybody having discoveries?
Commit to your plan.
Tell me more.
Okay, commit to your plan by identifying potential obstacles that could limit you in the, getting to your goal.
Did you have a different perspective as you shared them?
Yes.
Tell me more. I'm just going to tell you right now, my favorite coach. I had a coach. I am telling you, I hated the guy because all he ever did was say, "Tell me more." But you know what it does is that as soon as you hear it, and I see it, right? As soon as I ask you, I see you going. You go inside and you go, "Oh wait, there is more there," right? So most of us are so used to dealing at this surface level of stuff. If you haven't mastered the question yet, tell me more. Next time you're sitting in front of your client and they bring up something about their child, or they bring up something about the shingles that they just put on the roof, or the most boring thing you've ever heard of, if those words don't come out of your mouth, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? You will learn more than you ever dreamed. Tell me more. That's the magic question. All right, so keep going.
So 12-year plan, and if I want to go left or right, anything that could achieve me from, or distract me from getting that 12-year plan, unexpected obstacles such as unexpected college fund. Not that it wasn't unexpected, but unexpected expenses there, and now it's going to be setback or opportunity.
Yep.
You're, opportunity junkie.
Yes.
I see the next big Yahoo.
Yep.
So I want to invest, and it's like either invest or retire. Which one do you want to do? So.
It's good. There's something about pre-decision making that makes a difference. Good. Go ahead.
We were talking about the weaknesses, and it's kind of like, like what I was talking to Reggie about, the distractions, the bright and shiny objects. But also just thinking about, like, I had a goal investing in rental property, and you get to the goal and you're ready to purchase, but then you don't. Something else, like, okay, goal accomplished, but then I don't want to run a property. You just change your mind. I don't want to do it.
What do you do with that?
We want trailers.
Move.
Trailers, do something else,
Yep. Right? So things happen, right? Our lives change, and our goals may change along with them, right? I'm not sure that that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, there's always this, you have to determine, is this an obstacle or is this a new path? I think there's always, every day, we get to make these new choices, right? Being able to evaluating through these filters is hugely important. Am I going to quit selling real estate and become a team leader? I don't know, right? For some, that may be an awesome opportunity. For some, that may be a dreadful opportunity. It is the best opportunity in this company, I can tell you that right now, right? But I'm an OP, so I have to say that, right? It's not true.
Is it Jesus answer?
Yeah, yes, it is. No, it's not true. It really is. It can be a really fantastic opportunity. It's not for everybody. That's great. Any others? Ahas on self-mastery? None? This is my favorite book on self-mastery. I'm classifying them on self-mastery. I don't write this. He does not talk about self-mastery in that form. David Goggins is the author of this book, and it's called Can't Hurt Me. This is absolutely an unbelievable story about a guy that was spraying termites that turns into a Navy SEAL, right? Like spraying termites in 300 pounds, right? And turns into a Navy SEAL. And his whole story to get there. And this is not rose bushes, this is not roses, and this is no easy life, right? This dude has it dialed in. He's got a YouTube channel and a podcast and all some other stuff too that's really, really fantastic. But this is for you. Whether or not you choose that rental property doesn't matter. What that book tells me though is that when we commit to self-mastery, we actually do get the opportunity to become somebody else. David Goggins became a very different person over the course of about 5 years. So, check out that book if you want. All right, you're welcome. Can't Hurt Me. There is some foul language in it. If that offends you, you may want to be careful. Who's heard of the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule? We've already talked about it a little bit. Officially, the answer is there's a pattern of predictable imbalance in life called the 80-20 rule. Simply put, it says that 20% of anything gets 80% of everything. So if we look at the real estate community, you look at all of Edwardsville, all the people in your board, 20% of the agents are producing 80% of the business. That's pretty true, right? It's not perfectly true anymore. I'd say some of this 80-20 rule is moving farther and farther away. Some of it's becoming 90-10. If you read any statistics about wealth, it's more like 97-3 and 99-1, right? I mean, this is a very small percentage control most of the wealth. There's a reason for that. Well, there's a problem with that. We kind of need to look at going why. Now, if you're in the 20%, you're going, yeah, this is awesome, right? If you're in the 80%, you're like, yeah, I get it, right? The world's not fair. right? It's just the way it is. So, our goal is to be in the 20%, right? This is not about that. Then this isn't even about world standing. This is about our activities. Because our activities, the things that we do on a daily basis, also produce 80% of our results. 20% of my profit at the end of the year comes, or 80% of my profit at the end of the year or end of the month come from 20% of my activities. What's that tell you about my activities? Why am I doing all that other garbage, right? It's kind of what we're going to learn about. So, I'm going to skip over the reading for a minute. I don't know, I think this has this story of this, the big rocks come first, right? So I'm going to kind of tell you about how that thing works. And this comes from the book, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. But this story is about a professor, right, in a, I don't know if he's in a high school class or in a college class or whatever, it doesn't matter. But he takes this jar. He takes this jar and he fills it full of rocks. And he hands it out to the class and he goes, is this jar full? And the class says, yes. And he goes, is it really? Right, because then he takes this jar full of rocks and he pours sand in over the top. What happens to the sand? It filters down around the rocks and fills it all the way up. And he hands it back to the class and he goes, is this glass full? And they go, yes. And he's like, can I fit anything else in it? And they're like, no. And so he goes back and he pours in a cup of water. And the water goes in and fills in all the gaps around the sand. It filled all the gaps around the rocks. And he hands it back and he says, now my glass is full. Right? And so the challenge to this story is, if we wanted to fill that, if you wanted to fill it first with water, what would happen? You couldn't happen. You put the rocks in, and it spills out. You put the sand in, and it all spills out, right? So the challenge is, how do we come up with the right combination that we fill our buckets with the right activities the first time around, right? So, as a real estate agent, do you know what your 20% tasks are? Who's been through both? Okay, so you all know. What are the top 20%? What are your priorities as a real estate agent?
Lead gen.
Oh,
Jen,
yeah, you're right.
lead follow-up.
Oh my gosh, she knows them all.
Jen,
Lead gen is one, you're right. Lead follow-up is number 2.
scheduling appointments or going on appointments.
Wow, you're my favorite. I'm serious, nobody ever knows these.
Negotiating
That's technically the next one. Negotiate, script. What else? It's a trick question. Because there is nothing else. There is nothing else. This is what you get to do if you're a real estate agent. She was really calculating too. There is nothing else you get to do if you're a real estate agent. So do you have any idea how many problems agents have when I say, why are you going to the closing? Who goes to their own closings? I proudly will admit I've not been to a closing since COVID. Anybody else? Did anybody else use COVID as an excuse not to go back to doing the things that they used to do? I did. I did, right? So truly, Jesse, you're going to closing still? It's okay. But so seriously though, do you need to go to the closing? Didn't COVID teach us that it was okay not to? Do y'all go to your inspection?
No.
Hey, if you want to go for your fun and personal enjoyment and everything else, I get it, right? I really do. So I'm not downplaying that. I'm just telling you it doesn't yield you the next results.
No, but it's the best part of seeing your client.
Sure. So again, 20% of real estate agent activities. It is not dollar productive. Go.
So technically, you can go to a closing in lead gen if you ask your seller or buyer, can you write down 3 people that are interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate?
So will you get more results from that or spending an hour on the phone doing, right, calling your database? I don't know. Both are good answers. Both are good answers. Here's what's interesting about the pushback on those, right, is that some of these things we do just build up because that's what we do. And all of a sudden, but I love people. And I feel this obligation to my client to be their friend and everything else. But the truth is, the most recent house that we just sold has bought 7 houses from me. I didn't go to the closing, and guess what? She'll buy the next one from me, right? She's still going to be my friend when I see her. When I see her at the country club, I'm still getting a big hug. No, but it had nothing to do with going to the closing, right? So I'm just saying there are other ways to do it if you choose. These are the most important things. You go on in your inspection appointments. I've had so many agents go, no, I'm going on inspection because I want to know. I need to be there. So just okay. Just the challenge. This is your 20%. What else do you do that doesn't fit into those boxes? Anything?
Organize your life.
Oh.
We're here.
Classic. Seriously, this doesn't show up on here.
No.
Right.
So why are you here?
So that you get that. If you don't have that.
I could argue that some of this shows up down here in this script and role play component, right? We're not going to talk specifically about scripts in here, but you will learn some things, some new mindsets and some new thoughts and some new tricks. As you go through those, you'll have different conversations with your client. I'm very hopeful that one of you has learned at least one new script today. You got one? Tell me more. That's my script. I mean, seriously, do you hear it? That is a script. It is among the most powerful ones I have, I'm telling you. And it's the craziest. Script on. Right, so you will learn something like that. So hopefully this isn't totally non-dollar productive. But truly, if one of you walked out of here because, hey, I all of a sudden figured out that I'm not going to achieve my goal if I'm sitting here in this classroom, go, please. I'm 100% supportive of that. Your goal. I don't know what goal you wrote down. Right, so you wrote down a goal, and now we get to set up and try to. Oh yes, I'm sorry. She's taking back control. Every woman in my life is always taking back control. I don't know what that is. Okay, so here's the deal. How are you going to identify the 20% of your goal that you wrote down? If I aim to have $35,000 a month in passive income by the time I'm 55, what are your priorities? What is it that I actually need to be going to work on?
We need to kind of decide what you're investing in, how much are you saving per month, what account is it going into? Like, you need a full-blown plan.
A full-blown plan. She is not wrong. Anybody really good at building pro formas and all that kind of stuff? There's nothing I like more than building spreadsheets to go through, right? And I can bury myself in those conversations all day long, right? And it might get me a little bit. It's all right. It might get me a little bit closer to the goal, and I land often in this space of what I would call analysis paralysis, right? Because I can go over numbers and over numbers and over numbers and over numbers, and you know what? It doesn't necessarily get me to the next spot. So, anybody read The One Thing? Did I even bring it? Oh yes, I did. Good for me. I'm a faithful Keller supporter. If you read The One Thing, he talks about this thing called a should-do list. Heard of it? There's 100 things that we should do. As a real estate agent, what should you do?
should.
We should, yes, you're right. We should go to the closing. Really, we should. I'll buy that. We should. We should come to the office and hang out with the agents, right? We should do that. Because greatness rubs off, I believe that. What else should we do? You get into just shoulds. And then there's all of these, what's the next category?
We should lead generate and follow up.
Yeah, we should lead generate and we should follow up. We should do all of these things. Let's look at page 33.
Should have to delegate.
Let's look at page 33. You're going to look at this. You get another spot to write down your goal. I don't know if you understand how intentional some of this stuff is, right? So my very first MCA, which Kara Young is her name. She was awesome. She was my admin for my construction company. I grew her in. Then I one day opened up the Keller Williams company or office, and I named her as my MCA. She was my MCA for about 10 years, and she was my most favorite person on earth until she got swallowed up by KW. She now works for Keller Williams International. Still lives in Bloomington, but she works remotely for Keller Williams International. You know what she does? She writes the curriculum for all of this stuff, right? So it's really, really awesome. She just rewrote Leadership Fundamentals. If you haven't taken that, that's all her stuff. But here's what I really want to tell you. None of this stuff is written unintentionally. Meaning, do you think there's a reason they have you write down this goal 12 times today? Yeah, I'm telling you. So my challenge is this. Don't skip over these blanks. Go write in your goal one more time. The more times we write it, the more clear it gets, the more intentional we start to become ingrained in you, and you start to believe, you start to get this idea that, hey, you know what? This is actually who I'm going to be. The doubts and the misgivings and whatever start to disappear the more we absorb it. So keep writing it. In fact, if you really wanted an exercise, you could go start writing it when you get home. My son is a senior in high school this year, and he's got some very big goals. He's taken a lot of this stuff to heart, and he actually has, like, on his bathroom mirror. You've heard this, right? Write on your bathroom mirror what your goal is. My kid does that stuff, right? And I guess it makes me proud in a lot of ways because I'm like, all right, he's going to achieve some stuff, and he is. I have no doubt, but that's partly why. He didn't learn it from me either, but I'm just saying, isn't that the thing, right? It's a good thing though. All right, the goal. Now you're going to write a to-do list. There's a handful of blanks in there. What are all the things that you need to do in order to achieve that goal? Lead generation might be one of them. I'm okay with that. The more specific you are with it, be it. Specific means door knock 20 doors versus make 20 phone calls. I don't care how you lead generate. You've done this before. Oh.
I've been in therapy over half my life. Oh yeah.
Similar. Everybody getting a list? Man, apparently there's a lot of things to do. Right, there's a lot of people writing still, which is good. We can keep writing. It's the slides. If I was paying attention to the slides, it's all right there. What are you getting? Everybody got some sense of a to-do list. These are all the things I have to do to achieve my goal. It may not be exhaustive, right? If you thought about this for another 30 minutes, for another 2 days, my guess you could write a list of 100 things. Right? It just depends on how detailed you want to be. And I promise you that we can prioritize the list that we already have. So as you look at that list, what are the ones that you look at are going to have the most impact the fastest? Circle the ones that you think have the most impact. If you circle them all, you did it wrong. Sorry.
That would be me.
The most impact. I don't know how many you circled. Like I say, if you circled them all, it gets a little trickier now, but hopefully you just narrowed it down to 3 or 4, or maybe 5 if you had to. The truth is, there's one of those that probably makes more difference than any of the others. This is not about choosing the one that sounds fun, or I like to do that, or whatever else. This is about the one that you think has the most impact at the end of the day on your goal. Can you identify it to one? Highlight it, box it, circle it. Star it, I don't, whatever it is. Because guess what? This starts to become your 20%. But this is not even a difficult exercise, is it? One of the things I find most disturbing in life is I fail to take the time to do these simple exercises, right? So I'll go through every day, and just get exhausted and frustrated and whatever else. When in reality, if I just circle back and do some of these simple things, my life gets simpler and everything gets calmer, right? And we get to go farther faster. So, anybody care to share one? They're one thing. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? Anybody land one?
Every day. Come to the office every day.
Come to the office every day. This is the rub elbows, right? Come. Is that what you do? Or is this just come in and work?
No, come purposefully to work, not to rub elbows.
Ah.
To lead gen and make follow-up calls and all that good stuff, not to be a water cooler guy.
Lies.
I had a guy leave the office once, and he said, he goes, well, nobody likes to hang around and drink coffee in here. I'm like, what? This is that, right? I mean, I actually had a guy leave my office because he wanted people to hang out and drink coffee with him. I'm like, okay, fine. There was another one. Go ahead.
I just said, I haven't had a plan for my goal. I haven't had like a distinct laid out plan. I just get up and go, oh, I'll do that today.
Ah.
Yeah, now I have a plan.
Now you have a plan. That's good.
I just wrote mine down, like, the one thing I can do daily is just review my plan. Like, keep my goal to top of mind at all times. Because I find that when I do that, which is like, writing it on the mirror or whatever, then I'm always, every decision I'm making throughout the day, I'm thinking about that one goal.
100%. I have this, I see my wife slapping me across the face because I just used her expensive lipstick to write this thing on my mirror. Right? That's exactly right. You ruined it. But you're right. So I'm questioning for myself now, where do I write that so that I see it all the time?
Mirror. Dry erase
On the mirror?
Dry erase marker on the mirror.
Anybody have a clever little background on their computers?
I got one on my phone.
Oh, I can't even get to mine. But I've got one, right? So I actually see it every day, right on the face of my computer, right? So it reminds me. Think a little bit bigger, right? It just gets me back into that conversation with myself. You're coming.
I was gonna say mine are all like, the one thing that I can do is a very specific set of actions repeatedly. And I am a time blocker religiously, and I'm also really terrible at not actually doing them. So my one action is to put it in my phone with alarms that stop me from whatever else I'm doing and force me to turn it off.
I have two dirty words for you. They're discipline and willpower. Nobody ever talks about those, but that's the difference between doing it and not.
Also though, she's
And I
really
share your
critical
pain.
on herself. She's really critical on herself.
I appreciate
She
it.
does mind block, and
I
see
do,
her,
but
I see her doing what
but
she
it's
needs
because
to
I
do.
know that that is a downfall of mine. Like, I know that about myself, is that if I don't have that alarm that like makes me stop and pick up my phone and turn it off, I will totally do something completely different with my time and regret it later.
I love it. Any others? One things?
Oh, I've got one.
Go.
Mine is actually, everyone keeps talking about their plan and putting it up and having it everywhere. Mine is actually do a smart plan in Command. I don't even have a smart plan started in there. I have my contacts in there, but I've never started a smart plan.
Why not?
An appointment with Kate.
Oh,
So on your, go to Power Hour.
because
and that way-
because maybe there's somebody in this office that'll actually do it for you? Is that the way it works in here? It doesn't work that way? Like Kate can't? How does Kate help?
She can do it. She just tells me what I need to do. I'm not tech savvy.
I hold her accountable.
I get it. I
Just
get
like
it totally.
Press this button and then press this button.
Do you know what's crazy about smart plans, right? And you're not the only one that has that issue, I promise you, because most of us land on, I'm not gonna point to anybody either, but most of us land on this, well, I'm gonna start that as soon as I get it all customized.
Right.
Okay, right?
Doesn't sound like me.
Yeah, do you know when we get it customized? Never, right? So Julie, it's never done and designed and perfect, and so we never start it, and every year we have the same goal, and it just, no. This is the thing. So how do we get here, right? I mean, so how do we get to this point where I have this big goal, I have now some kind of priorities that I've set up around it. I know some strategies in order to help me achieve it. How do we actually get there? How do we follow through on it so that we always know? But this for me is all about a plan. And if you know anything about Keller Williams, there's a plan for everything, right? So the plan for getting things done in Keller Williams is called 411. Anybody use it? Okay, come on. Yeah, I know that nobody uses them. Do you know how I know that?
You don't.
Well, partly because I don't. No, I do have one. I'm 50-50 at following it. So what keeps me into it is that I have a coach that asks me about it every week. Let's talk through your 411. So I do have to do some things to update it and keep it clear. It's not as good as it could be, right? And I have an opportunity to go, hey, is this the thing that's actually going to help me get some things done? So let's go through a 411. Give me one click, and I think it'll give you this page. There you go. This is what a 411 might look like for a mega agent. Right? Now, a mega agent in Keller Williams terms is an agent that produces $10 million or more in volume. Okay? So, do you guys use a different standard, Ginger? Ish, right? So about $10 million bucks. So these are not chumps, right? $10 million agents doing a lot of business. Here's what they do. It's split up into 3 different categories. The first one starts with your annual goals. That's a 1, right? Your annual goal is, I want to sell $10 million. Now, as we get into these specifics, we start having these volume goals. I didn't even tell you about this when we started setting goals, but does anybody set volume goals for themselves? What's the problem with volume goals? They don't necessarily produce any money. Could I sell $10 million worth of real estate and not have any money left over at the end of the year? Yeah, it's very likely, as a matter of fact. I speak from experience. I've done it. I can spend all that money pretty easy. So $10 million can turn into nothing, particularly if I'm discounting my listings. So I go to one step farther, which is a GCI goal. Your gross commission income is a better goal because now that regulates what I have to charge for my listings, how much my buyers are getting, maybe what price points I'm selling or something like that. So that's a measure now of just income, right? But could I make a lot of income and actually spend every dollar that comes in? Absolutely. So I take it a little one step farther and I say, hey, a better goal than GCI is actually profit. Do you know what real estate agents never really get taught to talk in terms of profit? right? Because profit is what? Anybody know the formula for profit? Income minus expenses equals profit, right? This is simple. And yet not very few of us actually track it. So when we start looking at those three items, that means that I actually have to set a budget. That means I actually have to control my expenses. That means when Zillow calls tomorrow and goes, hey, 61704 just opened up. It's only $500 a month. Do you want in? I don't get to go, yes, I do, right? Because remember, I love opportunities, right? So I don't get to go yes because now I have to control it through the budget. Now I have to call somebody like Jessie and go, hey, I want to go do this thing. And she goes, you're an idiot. You're not doing that because you said you were going to do this. I'm telling you, these are the kind of people that I need in my life to remind me of my weaknesses. I'm telling you. So that's the challenge. I would tell you if your goal right now is written in terms of volume or units or GCI, don't change that goal. Keep those there. Add to it a profit goal. A profit says at the end of the year, here's how much money I want to have. So, annual goal. You're going to write it in that top block. Okay? If your annual goal was to sell $1.2 million in real estate, I'm going to convert that now into a monthly goal. So, it's easier for me to track what happens in the month of April than what's going to happen for the full year. So, I want to go through now and say, all right, 1/12 of my goal is what? If my goal is $1.2 million, it's easy for me to say, okay, it's $100,000 this month. SMART goal, specific, measurable, accountable, time-bound, all of those things, right? It fits into those boxes. So you're going to write 1/12 of your goal. Now, what if your goal is not what if it's not a financial goal? What if your goal is something, how do you take 1/12 of 2 weeks vacation? Does that make sense? I mean, I may have a goal that says I want 2 weeks vacation this year. Or 6 months, I don't know what you, right? How do you take 1/12 of it?
Research where you're going.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ah, I like that. So see, it is possible to take 1/12 of your goal. Is it important to see that every month? Is it important when you do your monthly review? So on April 1st, when you go back and you're looking at your financials and you're looking at your goal sheets and you're tracking, how are we doing? Is it important to see that that's still my goal for the year? Yes. So the fact that we don't know how to make 1/12 of it is not okay. You just discovered for us that it is possible to make 1/12 of anything. So do it, right? And take the time and use the discipline we need to get there and think through it. All of those monthly goals we convert into a weekly goal, right? Because I can control this week a whole lot easier than I can control the whole month. And I know that if I have a sales goal of $1.2 million, then this week I need to be producing something like $300,000 worth of business, yes? Right, because that's 1 week of 4 weeks, right? So I've just taken a quarter of my goal. Not hard, right? So we're going to try to break all of those down. Other thing interesting about this 411 is the way that it's separated. There's a job, there's a business, there's a personal, financial, and a personal. Anybody ever break them down that way? Do you know what I have the biggest struggle with? What's the difference between my job and my business?
Working on and working in.
Was it you that mentioned that earlier?
No.
No, that was, yeah, in your business versus on your business. So what does that mean? Do any of us actually own businesses? I mean, I know we're all taught that we do, right? This is another Keller Williams thing, right? That we go, hey, you're a business owner, congratulations. And you are. The problem is, very few of us actually have businesses, right? How would you define it? Go ahead.
Before I got into real estate, I was a hairdresser, I owned a salon, and then I am a landlord. I own 15 properties, 15 here and 1 in Texas.
Awesome.
So I am a business owner, but we are a team and we do run our business like a business.
Run it like a business. So there is a difference between your job and your business, right?
Yes.
So some of us don't yet have those defined lines, right? Where we figured out that, hey, this is actually can operate like a business. And so some of our challenges are going to be, do you want it to? Many of us will choose just to maintain it as a job all the time. Job, the difference between a job and a business, in my opinion, is what happens if I don't show up to work tomorrow? I don't get paid, right? Which means I have a job, right? Most of us today, in a lot of roles in my world, I have a job. If I don't show up in the construction company tomorrow morning, bad things are going to happen. Just saying. That's what Frank's for. Right? So bad things don't happen. But I'm just saying, in a lot of ways, I still have jobs, right? And I accept those. It's okay to accept where you are. If you want it to be a business, we have to start taking steps to turn it into a business. Those might be things that show up on your business level 411. If I don't want to show houses for the rest of my life, what might that look like? 411 makes sense to you, right? Okay, so there is a blank 411 on here. I'm not going to take the time right now to do it, but this is one of those areas where I say, hey, if you don't do this, guess what? You just get a little farther from achieving the goal. There's something about stopping and spending some time going through these kinds of things that make the difference between achieving and not achieving. Why it shows up in the 6 personal perspectives. This will help you prioritize specifically into the 80-20 rule so that you're focused on the priorities that matter, and you can delegate, you can leverage, you can do something to determine the rest of the results. Right? Page 41 gets into this thing called time blocking. Right? I've already told you that I've learned to despise the name, mostly because, not because it's a good thing, it's a great thing, but because most of us have learned to say, yes, time block, as I know this is the right answer to give you, and you'll shut up and leave me alone, and I can go back and turn on the TV and live my own existence, right? What is time block really? Anybody do it consistently? Well, go ahead. Tell me more, because you did say, right?
I time block, my personal phone has my personal time block, my work phone has my work time block. And they're specific, and they have a specific meaning and reason for them. There's a time block that the team is on, there's a time block that my family's on. And for me, it is about creating consistent habits that allow me to reach my goal at the end. So I know what my quarterly goal is, or I know what my monthly goal is, and I know that in order for me to not let life dictate what I do, I have to dictate what my life does.
From her team member, what it creates also is us staying out of her business while she's focusing on those things, because she's made us aware of when she's busy or when she's not.
Yep.
So it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
The one that my kiddo's on, he loves it in high school. Like he pulls it up on his phone and says, okay, like I know mom is gonna be crazy busy from 6 to 7, so he'll text me and be like, hey, you think it's 7:30? You wanna like watch a movie and have ice cream? And I'm like, perfect. Because if he comes home after school and says, do you want to have a movie and ice cream? I'm going to be like, yes. And I will never get what I was supposed to be done. And I will regret it tomorrow when I'm trying to cram it in and I have to bump something else that's maybe a different level of importance to me.
Absolutely.
It gives me the flexibility to choose when I move.
I love it. Anybody live by a calendar? That is the whole time block bold colored calendar thing. Anybody else good? You do it. It's fantastic.
I do it.
I do not do that.
I was
Ginger's like, I don't either.
It's the only way my life would run.
We do.
I have mine.
Yeah.
Does it work for you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Ish.
I'm a hairdresser, and my mindset, I'm still a hairdresser, so my whole life has been time blocked.
Right?
So,
Here's what I find as my life gets busier and busier, right? I'm much better at blocking when I'm really, really busy because I'm forced into it, right? So right now, I have so many buyers, we have so many sellers, we have so many new construction projects that it's just I've got one appointment after another, after another, after another. But do you know what else I find? Is that's also a schedule by default. That's actually not a time block. Now I treat it as hey, I'm doing lead generation, I'm signing contracts, I'm doing good things. In fact, these things are required to do it. But you know what I don't get in? This thing called think time. Right? Does anybody have think time? I don't. I mean, I'm dictated by my customers. I don't know about you guys. I'm dictated by my agents, right? We have, how many agents are in your office here, Ginger? 150. Do they demand a little bit of your time?
We were just talking.
When she's here.
Hey, thank you for that, because you know why she's not here?
Because she has time to go do what she wants.
Because I can't get anything done when I'm at the office because I got somebody standing at my door every minute going, hey, would you look at this contract for me? Here's what I know about Ginger, because Ginger and I are a lot alike in this regard. When you come to her, do you know what she wants? She wants to help you more than any other thing in the world. She wants to give you everything that she's got, all of her experience and all of that. She wants you to have it.
Even if you don't want it.
Fair, fair.
Even if we're trying to shut the door.
100%.
You still tell them.
And do you know what else I know about Ginger is that is holding her back from becoming something else. Because there's amount of time that she spends on that she should's not the right word, but that she could be using on something else that would allow her to go and achieve the next goal. Because until she achieves the next goal, right, once she achieves that, we all get to move a step up, right? Someday she's going to have me teaching for 300 agents, right? But until she can control the God minutes, right? And the impulse to go help. So my challenge is this. The time block is a real thing even for Ginger. So that may or may not be what she's doing away from the office. I don't really know. Maybe she's golfing. But that's the thing. We all have this thing that we're avoiding, right? And so my time block, I'm super good and feel super great after a day like yesterday where I had back-to-back appointments. We signed a bunch of contracts. We did a bunch of good things. I feel good at the end of the day. Except I didn't focus on the things that I should actually be focusing on. There's a think time component that shows up and goes, hey, what's next? Because you got this thing. Now you need to figure out how to build this thing. This is the job versus business component, right? And until I stop for a minute and block out some new time to go do these things that get me to next, something to consider. And I'm assuming that Ginger lives in this world. You may live in this world because some of us have these businesses now that are starting to be bigger than just real estate sales, right? And what happens as leaders is we get locked into these roles because we've done this for so long. This comes so natural to us that it just becomes my default mode. And now I have to start thinking differently. I have to start thinking like a leader. And perhaps the biggest leap in the world to make is to figure out, okay, I'm not doing this for me anymore. Now I have to have somebody else doing this. And why do none of us want to hire an admin or a buyer agent or anything else? Do you ever hear an agent complain about that? Well, I'm not doing that. Or I don't want to be a manager. I had to buy a hire once. I never just do this on my own. That's the problem. We're locked into this thinking, right? And we haven't gotten ourselves into that next level. We'll be locked into the job for the rest of our lives. That might be okay. And it might not be. If it's not, we need to start adding something to our world that I would call think time. Fair enough? Okay, 4 keys to time blocking, right? It's consistent. Right? It has to be the same time all the time. I have worked for a minute. Jesse will laugh when I say this, but my goal has been to do Thursdays, right? So Thursday morning, I don't get to come to the office till noon. I'm horrible at it, by the way. Do you know why? I want to be at the office. That's where all the action is, right? That's where I have fun. That's where I get filled. The problem is that's not where I can think. So I've tried. And in fact, I have a coach who keeps me accountable to have your Thursday morning at home. I have to work from home and do my thing. That's my think time. But it has to be consistent. You have to be thoughtful and purposeful about the things on your calendar. What's that mean? Thoughtful and purposeful about the things on your calendar. Anybody ever have something show up on their calendar that's not purposeful at all? Oh man, I have stuff show up on there all the time that I'm like, why am I doing this? Seriously. Always time block for the 20%. If you don't put these things on there, they're not likely to happen. I did not lead generate yesterday because literally I had back-to-back-to-back appointments, yes? If you erase, you must be replaced. What's that mean?
If you take something.
If you cancel. Yep, that's correct. Right, so most of the time, if I scratch lead generation off because an appointment showed up, I'm not putting that back on there. I'm just saying. Right, because by the time 3 o'clock rolls around, I'm tired and the sun's shining and I got a golf course calling my name, right? I'm not doing it. Doesn't have to be the same day. I could.
As long as you don't push that back to 4 hours on the Saturday.
We're all guilty of that.
Do you?
That's the concept, right?
That's correct, right? So I'm just saying, right, that this is where discipline and willpower show up. if your goal is really that important to you, you will start to put things in place that say, I'm gonna do this no matter what, because it has to show up. Has to. Has anybody ever put together a perfect day? It's page 43.
Yes.
You have one?
Not on me, but I do have.
That's
one.
right. So but I know a lot of us done the exercise. This shows up in bold.
Yeah.
Anybody ever followed it?
Oh, I
I've
tried.
had many perfect days, but never ended up that way.
I don't.
They start
Tell me more.
Well, just like today, I booked, well, I thought this ended at noon. So I time blocked till noon, but then I had rental emergencies, so I've had to exit numerous times. I mean, I have two, and I've taken your class before, so I've always enjoyed it. But, I mean, you don't know, a hair appointment can run longer, because I still do hair. Showings can all end up for one showing and be 5 showings, because we're doing show and goes. I mean, there's a lot of things. Your family comes into the factor. I mean, emergencies happen, things show up. So a perfect day on paper is there, doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
She's right. Things show up.
They do, but I think you have a hardest time saying no or not jumping into emergencies when you don't fully respect your own priorities sometimes. You worry about what other people will think, you worry about letting people down. If you're not leading a life where you say, this is my priority. And I think when you look at those people who have those boundaries, those clear boundaries, I don't think any less of them. I know those are their priorities.
I would argue the opposite. It's the people that you see with the clear boundaries that we actually have more respect for.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I agree with you, right? And because partly because they feel like they have control, and I would say also because they're actually achieving some stuff. I look at people all the time and I wonder, how do they get that much done, right? I mean, holy cow, seriously? And the difference is,
I just said that to Mary Ann about Shannon. Because they have their shit together, let's just say. Everything sounds good, and what they do is good, and I would love to have that, I guess, headspace.
yep.
I can promise you,
Yes.
I can promise you. No, but this is what I mean.
But it comes across that way.
This is what I mean.
Yes.
I think we make a concerted commitment to repeating the activity and to having it in place, but it's not always perfect.
What's interesting, this is the,
But it definitely appears that way.
you remember the,
Yeah, and I don't mean anything,
Yeah.
nothing bad against, I think that it's amazing.
Yeah,
The way
we're just
you
all
guys
really hard on
I hear that as a compliment.
Yes.
I hear that as a compliment. Did you ever go into a client's house in a listing appointment? Did you ever go through the house and go, man, this is beautiful. I could sell this tomorrow. You don't have to do a thing. And the customer's going, oh my gosh, right? There's this. I need to get this. I need to get those cushions straightened up. And I think the roof has a spot on it that I don't really like so well. And the garage, I'll organize that for. Anybody have that client?
Uh-huh.
Right. So to you, you're looking at it going, hey, it's got everything that I need. And on the inside, when they know where all the words are, they're like, oh my gosh, right? As soon as you see what's on the inside of this thing, go ahead.
But I will say that part of that is because, like, our team is 2 agents and 2 admin, right? And the way that our team fully functions is that we know that those 5 things are their job, and us as admin, the rest is ours. And we don't get in their lane and they don't get in our lane unless we have to, or unless there's truly an actual situation that requires us. But that's what they get to focus on, and then we
Like, they
take
should
on.
teach teams here. Like, I really do think that.
Yes.
Like, you guys do a really good job.
I think
Well, let's schedule that.
Yeah, I just heard a volunteer as well.
Well, she volunteered her.
That's fair.
Well, I think what BJ's saying is exactly that. You have to follow the 80-20 principle. We know what our 20s are, and I had to learn and maybe this might be the one little nugget I can contribute for everyone here. I had to learn to give up control. I had to learn to get out of a solo agent mind and a true team mindset and say, I do not have to be in charge of everything. I do not have to be the best at all of it, but I can join forces with people who are the best at their lane.
But was that easy for you to do?
It was not.
I
There
know.
were a lot of times where, honestly, as our admin, I had to say, hey, like,
I got
this is why I'm here. Like, I know you want to run it, but like, you brought me on for this.
Yeah.
I am not good at lead generation. That's why I'm not an agent. But what I am good at is all of the other things.
Yeah, and that's where the ego has to take the back seat, and you have to say, okay, tell me more, tell me more,
Absolutely.
right? And you grow up from there. But you're right, the 80/20, we each focus on our 20 and let everybody else do their own.
Yep.
If we're gonna have a successful time block.
Yep.
In the one thing, Gary Keller talks about other strategies, right? We talked about making it consistent. We talked about having some specific activities. He also talks about this thing called build a bunker. Let me do that. What's it mean to build a bunker? You're thinking something. Oh, that's not like a real bunker.
No, but building security around the space where you're working.
Tell me more.
Something I'm working on. That space to work my own business because I'm a coach. And so work shows up for me all day long from 8 to 8, no matter what I think I'm going to do for my own personal business. There's an agent in coaching that needs me all the time. So I'm working on trying to build my bunker.
What does your bunker need?
It needed a door. It has one now.
Oh, nice.
Yes!
Doors are key. I agree with you totally. What else?
I just need to utilize my Calendly better so that agents know that they have to go there first.
Oh, so you need to communicate it with other people as well.
I was gonna say, one of my quotes that I live by is an emergency, or poor planning on your part is not an emergency, mine is an emergency. I hold people true to that, and I'm like, well, is this problem more important than the priority that I have focused on right now?
Yes.
And no, most of the time the answer is no.
Correct.
And that problem can be fixed later.
Absolutely. What's the most hilarious thing about a real estate office? You all have these glass doors that I've seen, right? How good a bunker does that create? None. Right? So the door's useless because people see you in there. They're going to come talk to you whether you're working or not.
I stand like this and I'm like, Marion.
I know,
I
right?
see you.
And so what's our strategy? We come up with these fancy stickers for our glass door that say, I'm in my time block right now, don't bother me. But do you know what agent, you don't have those?
No, we do, but I'm just saying, do they work?
Well,
No.
we're going, that's
Because
our next
agents don't
step,
read those
but we're
things.
going
They're
to
like,
try.
oh, this
Agents
says
don't
welcome,
read.
come on
They
in.
just left it there.
So, yeah, so truly, you get to decide for yourself. Is the office the best place for your bunker? I don't know. Depends on what you want to get done.
I told Kate the other day, I have to go home so I can get some work done.
Yes. You have no idea how many times I hear that inside the office, right? And trust me, I come just like Ginger. I want more than anything to fill this space with every agent. I want 150 agents in here all the time. And I also know that that's not the most productive thing in the world all the time. So there's this crazy balance. But you have to choose where is your bunker going to be. It says sweep for minds. What kind of things show up as soon as you show up in your time block?
Instagram notification.
Instagram. Well, yeah, does that show up? Honestly, I show up, right? Because what I want more than anything, when I have to stop and start thinking and actually working, I crave that distraction, right? Have you ever identified your distractions? What's your go-to website? Amazon. Yeah, right? I want to go shopping. Yeah, I get it. TikTok. Oh my gosh, right? I mean, I do not have access to TikTok. I do not have Facebook. I don't have anything. You know what? Not because I don't enjoy them. I do. You know I don't have them. Oh my gosh, I will lose myself. My children make fun of me all the time because I played one game. I downloaded one app on my phone, right? And over Christmas break, one year we take 2 weeks in in Florida every year for Christmas. And I played Plants vs. Zombies to the very end in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Do you know how much time I spent with my kids? None. And so I never, it was the best vacation I ever had. So to be real, to this day they make fun of me because they will come at me all the time with, Dad, you should play this, you should play this, you should play this. I've never downloaded another game. Do you know why? they will suck me in and take all of my time and all of my energy. It's
Yeah.
who I am. I'm going there.
Maybe the kids aren't saying, Dad, we don't want to talk about this.
Take a hint. Fair. So sweep for minds. How do I sweep for my phone and my computer are by far my biggest distractions. I believe I cannot function without my computer. Anybody have that problem? Did anybody have the same problem that I cannot function with my computer? I seriously cannot. So I have this conundrum. There's this little half moon at the top of my menu bar. Everybody has it. You know what it means?
You set the notifications to kick you
Do
off
not
of
disturb.
everything.
That is the only possible way I can do it. In fact, there are often times where I actually have to shut off the Wi-Fi. You know why?
Airplane mode.
Airplane mode works. Because as soon as I get just the slightest hint of a distraction, and it might be a distraction of, hey, the stock market's down 200 points. Right? Hey, Tiger Woods says he's going to win the Masters this year. I'll go grab those headlines all day long, and do you know where it happens in my time block? This is a focus. Seriously, I wish I'd brought a copy of that book, Deep Work. It is a very good look at how really distracted we are, right? So, endless support. You guys talked about enlisting support when your bunker time shows up, right? Is that hey, I get to protect whoever it is. So, Kate, are you anybody's support on bunker time, on time block time?
Yeah.
Do you run interference for anybody?
Yeah.
So everything has to channel. Everything has to channel through you first. If you can find somebody else to channel questions through until it's done. Jesse has my phone right now. Do you know why?
So that
It rings consistently. I mean, it rings all the time, and it has text messages all the time. And normally, I would put it in my pocket. You know what happens? I can't even stand it. Yeah, well, vibrate, and I will just glance at it while I'm talking, and I'll still be able to conduct all this stuff, right? Clients, do you do this with your customer? Do you time block? Do you build this bunker when you're with your customer? Anybody been in a conference room and done one of these? Done one of these? All the time, right? I mean, because I cannot help myself when that thing buzzes. And what do your customers do to you? They go, oh, go ahead if you need to take that.
We allow that.
Do not ever.
We should not make them.
Do not ever take it. Well, honestly, they shouldn't even know that it's ringing. And what I want from a customer service perspective more than anything is I want you to believe that you have my undivided attention. I am all about you right now. When you go to the closing table.
We don't go to closings.
Oh, yeah. You win. When you go to the closing table, what do you do?
You take your computer like you're working on something on your file.
They need you there, though. Yeah, for the file. They need you there, though, right? You're lead generating. You hear these excuses you're making when, in reality, I spend zero time talking to the customer. They're busy. They're working with the lender, right? They got all kinds of stuff to sign. I don't spend time talking to them. I spend it on my phone. You. What do you do?
All right, I've debated on voicing my opinion on this or not because there's a lot of people that do this, and I'm guilty of it, but I try very hard when I show up to the closing table to not talk because I sit and I watch my client as they're going through, especially first-time home buyers, they're going through this paperwork and they're listening to their attorney or the title company talk about, okay, this is what this means and this is what this means. And I have the co-op that's also there and they're talking to me and we're having a full conversation and we're laughing and we're talking with the lender. And then I look at my first-time home buyer who's leaning in closer so that they can hear what the title company is saying. I try very hard to not talk to my co-op and also not look at my phone, which in turn makes it a lot easier to just not go to these closings because sometimes you're not helpful. Right?
Interesting. It might be a better strategy to not go to the closing.
Yeah.
Right? That's the most disrespectful person in the world. I don't know. Right? I don't know where you guys land. I've never had a client go there, I don't think. Right? But think about it. Because how you show up there does make a difference. I promise you I'd be on my phone the whole time. Just a thought. Ahas. 80-20. We talked about the 20% needed. We talked about the 411. We talked about the perfect day, your perfect calendar. We talked about how to build a bunker, basically. How do you ensure that your 20% gets done? What are your ahas? No. Sorry, we're not having ahas this time.
I need to be more intentional.
Tell me more.
Because I do a color-coded, seemingly well thought-out planner all the time, but I veer from it constantly. So I have to be more intentional. If I write it down, it has to stick.
Has to stick. What would help you get there?
I really think twofold. One, getting out of my own way, and two, setting more boundaries that are clearly defined with agents and coaching.
Wow. Set boundaries, get out of your own way. How do you get out of your own way?
Stop lying to myself.
Tell me more.
I'm really good at that because I will always say, oh, I'll do that later. However, when one of my kids says, Mom, do you want to do something with me? They're grown-ups now. All of my kids are grown-ups. They don't live at home. So when they want my attention, I'm like, oh, yes! I am all yours. I don't care what my intention was for the day. But I have to stop doing that.
Interesting. Clear boundaries.
I'm not lying.
What was that?
I said put them on a schedule.
My kids,
That thing, on my family calendar, there is time blocked family nights.
Right.
Like there is dedicated, nothing is gonna stop this from happening because it's just as important as any other thing that goes on my calendar.
Yeah.
So we have family nights, we have movie nights, we have pizza dinner nights, and they're, like, people know they're coming, don't talk to other people because we're doing this together.
You may choose to make exceptions to your rules. My children are an exception to my rules, right? I mean, I have my kids' phone calls will come through. I mean, my kids are 15 and 8 and 17, right? So they're not, they don't bother me that much, no different, right? But I want to talk. If they show up, I'm talking to them, right?
Yeah.
You come.
My calendar is morning alarms to bedtime, and I don't have think time in there. So I'm a creative person on the side. So I need to schedule my time and then protect it.
That's for you. Keith J. Cunningham's the author, right? So this book is called The Road Less Stupid. I didn't think of you because of the title. No, it's because think time, and my comments about think time come from him. So what he does in that book is he'll go through every chapter, and at the end of the day, or at the end of the chapter, he has a think time. And the challenge is, okay, now go think about this. So in some level, it's a, hey, stop reading and actually go think. Because I can use that book as entertainment all day long. And until I stop and actually create the action around it, it's kind of just for nothing.
I do have a question.
Go.
I've seen her calendar and it stresses me out. When I literally, like, every single thing is booked except bathroom breaks. So, but when I look at it, I'm just like, holy crap, she's so busy. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to even, like, talk to her. And I'm going to pull her away from her calendar. But then I look at mine and I have, like, 2 little things in there, you know? But I kind of more of a man. Still, I do a combination, manual and, you know, I just put my appointments in there. I don't really put my time block in there. So, anyway, I don't know. I think we all have to figure out what works best for us, you know?
Like maybe not schedule as much like we do so much in our calendars where every minute's booked and then you can't stick to it.
Then you can't. So truly, if I go through a week ahead of time and I book off my Thursday morning, and somebody calls to see a house or meet or something on Thursday morning, it automatically gets filtered out and goes, no, we're busy right then. Because I'll tell honestly, if I had another client, no way I'm going to double book myself, right? So I just have to give myself that same kind of priority.
Treat yourself like a client.
And I'm horrible at it. I really am.
But when you say that, and what I'm hearing, it's like boundaries, setting those clear boundaries, because I hear people say it all the time. Well, I don't have time for that, and it's the things that are important, and if you make the time, create a boundary around it. How important is it for you not to go past that boundary?
get the boundary in place. And then there's one more challenge that nobody talks about, and at some point I'm gonna write a book about this, which is discipline and willpower.
Yeah.
Because I can park myself in my chair at my desk in front of my computer unless I have the discipline and the willpower to actually get into focus. Guess what?
I do absolutely
I'm on Amazon shopping. Go ahead.
I think also the conversation of your boundaries, so like it's, what I do for me is I'll call Brady too, is I do this big list, and I'm like, I'm gonna do all this today. And then they break every single boundary and I get like 2 things done. So I also don't communicate my boundaries well. Like I would rather have a conversation and be like, hey Kia, today I'm working on this, I'll talk to you at 4 o'clock or whatnot.
Yep. Truth is, I'd rather have those conversations. So I had an agent call me or text me yesterday morning. Again, I had a crazy, stupid, busy day yesterday. Text me in the morning and said, hey, I got a question about a commercial transaction. This is an agent been in the business for a year. He's trying to sell a $2.5 million apartment building. Wants my advice. And you know what I did? Hey, that sounds fun, right? So at 9:30, I'm like, yeah, I can squeeze you in, but 9:30 to 9:40, come on in. Dummy.
Hour and a half later.
Yeah, right. But seriously, those are those kind of no boundaries, right? I go and choose what's fun and entertaining and exciting and whatever, and it fits my calling, right? I want to help people, right? I want him to sell a $2.5 million apartment building. That's cool.
Right.
Anyway, always challenges. It is 11:15. We're gonna have lunch show up here in a handful of minutes, right? So if somebody needs a restroom or something, obviously go. But we'll break. We're gonna wait into E2P, and then we'll break for lunch and. Perspectives, right? The first two. The one was commit to self-mastery, right? Becoming the best me that I can be. The second one was, anybody forget already? 80-20. Commit to the things that are going to make the difference in that to get to your goal. So now we're going to talk about E to P, and quickly put, E to P stands for entrepreneurial to purposeful, right? So I just had a lunch conversation that says my son, a senior in high school, has decided that he wants to study entrepreneurship in college, which means they actually have a college degree. You can graduate from college with a degree in entrepreneurship. What does that mean? If you're entrepreneurial, what are you? Self-starter? Business, yes, it's business school. You're 100% right.
I said what it was, I was like, he's doing.
It is a very fancy version of a business degree, right? This is how do you attract a 17-year-old that just wants to make a lot of money? You give it a cool title. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
For us, what does it mean to be entrepreneurial?
Self-starter.
Self-starter for sure.
Creator, builder.
A creator and a builder, sure.
Focus. Think outside the box.
Focus, yes, you think outside the box. Are we all entrepreneurs in this room?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you remember that list we put on the board? First we said freedom. We all want to have freedom to choose our own destiny and do our own things, and I don't want to have to work for somebody or answer to anybody. We love people. That's pretty common. Money shows up in there somewhere, so we're all looking for this thing, right? And that's what entrepreneurs look like. It looks like everybody in this room. Yet there's a problem with that, right? Because entrepreneurs also get locked into these own mindsets, right? Most of us have this giant thing. Some of us worse than others. Someone once upon a time named ego. Anybody know what that stands for? Eliminating growth opportunities. Ever heard that?
No.
But that's what happens, right? So entrepreneurs, most of the time, we land on this thing with big egos because, Jesse, do I believe I can do everything better than everybody else? Who was I just talking to just before lunch? I said the same thing. He was asking me about looking to get into coaching and teaching, right? And he said, how do you get into it? I don't know if you guys sit there, but I always sit in these rooms and I go, I could do that. Do not do it, right? I always sit in the room and I go, I could do that. And I take it one step farther and go, I could do it better. right? Whether it's true or not, right? Yes, that's my ego talking, but that's generally the way that I operate. Anybody see any problems with that? Eliminating growth opportunities, right? As soon as you land in those spots, right, all of a sudden, we create this thing called a lid, right? And what's a lid? Anybody read John Maxwell? A lid is basically the ceiling of your performance. So if I draw this dashed line on it, I was an economics major, so I actually love graphs, right? I know, right? And so if you look at this in terms of this is how much I can achieve. Let's look at a real estate agent, since that's what we all are. We all care about how many units we can sell in a year, don't we? Let's assume that somebody came along and said, how much can a single real estate agent sell? How well do you know the millionaire real estate models? Roughly. Gary Keller says you can sell about 35 as a single agent. Now, are some people more talented than others? Yes. So single agent might be able to do 50 units. Single agent might be able to do 15 units. Those are okay, right? This is just kind of a broad range. So let's say in a year's time, this is how many units you can sell. What happens to real estate agents? You ever notice your businesses do this and this and this and this and this, right? Here's what happens with a single real estate agent. We start our business, and what happens, right? You do all of the things. You go to Bold, and you come to these classes, and you do your script and role play, and you learn about how to sell real estate. And then all of a sudden at the end of the year, or into your second year maybe, you get to this level at about 35 units, and what happens? Usually it starts to go back down, right? And then your business comes back down, and maybe the next year you had a bad year or whatever else, and you go, well, I had some family issues, and I had this and this and this. Whatever excuses you make, but your business went down. And what happens when our business goes down, we start to kind of redouble. Right? We start to go, all right, you know what? I did 35 a year ago. I'm gonna do it again, right? I just need to go regroup. I just need a time block. That's what we're gonna say. And what happens is you do it again. And so you go in and you say, hey, here's what I'm gonna do. And at about 35 units, you kind of hit this ceiling. And this happens year after year after year. Anybody know an agent that's done about $3 million for the last 5 years? Maybe I'm talking to you, maybe I'm not, but a lot of us get locked into this ceiling of achievement, right, where we just can't seem to break through it. It seems like year after year it's the same thing. Do you know why? This is entrepreneurial behavior. We have a certain amount of gifts and talents built inside of us that allows us to hit whatever ceiling this is. If you're really good, it might be 50. If you're normal, it might be in the 30 range. Okay. And after that, I can no longer do things based on my own gifts and talents. That's as good as I am. Does that mean I'm stuck there for the rest of my life?
No.
What does it mean?
You need leverage.
I need leverage. Another Jesus word in Keller. Because everybody will tell you leverage, and I'm telling you, get real, right? I mean, they're not wrong. Tell me what leverage is. What is leverage?
Someone.
Yeah, adding the right person or system that allows you to continue to do the things that are income generating and taking the non-income generating and leveraging or giving them away to someone else to continue to build that side of the business when you focus on lead generating and income producing activities.
That's also more talented than you are in that.
That is the more talented.
Yes, please, thank you.
It's the step to growth. It's the next step to growth. You can't grow without it.
I don't know if you can all hear this, and you maybe all know the answer already. A person or a system, right? So what happens now is I'm taking my own abilities and I'm adding to them. So what happens at that point, I add a person. You might decide to hire an admin, right? And so now all of a sudden I can push off some things on an admin that can do some of the detail work, and I can go focus on my 20%. That all of a sudden increases the capability of my business. Now all of a sudden, for the same amount of effort, my effort I'm talking about, I can now come in here and do this much business. So now I get to raise this number to about 50 units. Does that make sense? Now we talk about it as people most of the time, and I would say we do agents a disservice most of the time by saying, hey, you need an admin. I don't know if that's not as big a deal as it once was, but it used to be that everybody was, well, you need to hire an admin, you need to hire an admin. Maybe, right? I mean, that's not necessarily the very best way for every person. So systems came up. What kind of systems do we use in the real estate business that gives us leverage, that increases our lid?
You can add in systems that continue to nurture your database for you automatically without you having to go in and manually do it.
Now give me the Jesus answer.
Command.
Command. Right? You know this. And you're not wrong. So yeah, database management, CRM. That is something that if you can do it and it's automatic, that something that's automated does it all for you, all of a sudden you can produce more for the same amount of effort. Now we're starting to talk about getting purposeful, right? When we become purposeful, we take our entrepreneurial selves and we build upon them so that we can do more. Easy, right? So do we all do it? Do we all do it well? Right? Here's the question. There is a method to getting purposeful, right? So this isn't all about, okay, now just go be purposeful, right? We need to know how are we actually going to get there, right? So there's a handful of ways to do it. I'm on page 51. Number one thing is focus. Now, if you haven't heard us talk about focus enough yet in this room, right, we have talked about getting, again, I'm moving back to my favorite book all of a sudden, which is, oh, why is it escaping me all of a sudden? Deep Work, right? It's a thing, right? I mean, it's all about focus. Well, according to this model, right, it's a, hey, how do we focus? First we write our goals, and then we figure out what's the 20% of our goals. Guess what? Congratulations, you've already done it. Remember the goal that you wrote down before launching? Mm-hmm. Get it firmly planted in your mind, right? Because we're going to keep going back to it. Now there's about strategic options. Anybody ever set a goal that they thought was impossible? Right? You know what goal I love, or the system I love, and you guys have probably all done this, right? In fact, we'll try. I believe this is in bold as well, but when you write out your production level, so if you set up for the end of the year and you said, hey, here's how much money I want to sell between now and the end of the year, go ahead and write a number down. What's your number that you're going to write down between now and the end of the year? Or you're going to sell between now and the end of the year? As you write that goal, you know that it's possible, right? It's doable? Okay. Now I want you to cross that number out and double it.
That's when the mind tricks start.
This is when the mind tricks start. You're exactly right. You see it. Do you look at that new number and go, not doable? No. Because what's naturally built into all of us is this ability to look at that number and start to come up with hows. Hey, you know what? Maybe I could. What if I did? And so the real trick to being purposeful is eliminating the entrepreneurial spirit saying, hey, I just need to go work harder. Now it's about how could I do that? If I got really purposeful about getting that done, how could I do it? I've had some big goals that have challenged me in that regard and really requires a lot of those, right? Are there different ways to do it? We sit in our office all the time and talk through new and new and new and new, right? What's among the scariest things for me is that just in the last week or so, we've identified 3 new positions that we need to hire. Scary. Because it's not the entrepreneurial way that I'm used to doing it. There's a little more purpose involved in it, right? So it does take me outside of a comfort zone into those things, but there's absolute purpose behind it. We find models to follow. Anybody using models in their businesses today? What's a model? Give me a model of a business. What's a business model that you would follow? The MREA. Okay? How well do we know the model? MREA, if you're not that well familiar with it, MREA says, how do you make $1 million? How do you profit $1 million in 1 year selling real estate? Do you get that this is a model to do that? It's an actual instruction manual that tells you exactly how to do it. And if you will do these things, you will win. Right? Does that sound crazy simple? That's an example of a model. Do you know what my model looks like? Do you know what my entrepreneurial model looks like? It looks just like yours. Because do you know what I did when I decided that I was too busy and I needed a little help in my business? I did what you do. You hire a buyer agent, right? Anybody do that? That's the entrepreneurial model, right? Because it feels like I just need relief. As opposed to the purposeful model, when you look at the millionaire real estate agent model, what's the first hire in a millionaire real estate agent? Admin. Why? Not wrong. You're not wrong.
So you can do what you do best.
So that you can stay entrepreneurial and they can get you back into a purposeful world. Seriously, it is that simple. If you spend enough time reading that model, studying that model, understanding that model, committing to that model, I promise you more of us would have million-dollar real estate businesses today than we do.
But that is the scariest step for people, is hiring their first admin.
We have an admin mastermind that we run once a month, and it's admins from teams in the group. And one of the things we were talking about is we've had solo agents join our admin mastermind, and we've also been sharing with them ways to bring in admin support without having to hire a full-time admin. Because there's so many different ways, like virtual assistants or admins that do part-time stuff, like part-time work that will just help clean up your database and then get you there. That there's so many ways to do that before you have to bring on somebody full-time and commit to paying a salary to somebody else. If you're afraid to do that, there's so many mini steps you can take before you get to the big one.
Are you for hire? Like,
No, the answer is no.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing is as we start looking at these models, we start to understand really quickly that I have to become somebody different in order to achieve that. Much of the time, that's where we start to shrink back and decide, hey, you know what, once I figured out that I actually have to go hire somebody, once I figured out that, wait a minute, I have to use a different checklist, I have to use all these other things, I don't want to do it that way, I want to do it my way. You remember what ego stands for, right? These are painful lessons that I keep learning over and over and over and over, right? We're not learning, just hearing. So, this is entrepreneurial purposeful, right? Not difficult. Models to follow are probably the biggest ones. Mentors. Who are you following? Right? As I get older and as my biggest business grows, it's harder and harder to find people to say, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And I still have them, right? They're just changing and shifting a little bit. Who are you looking at right now that says, that's who I want to be? Bigger than that. Are you in conversation? Are you in relationship with the people that are like the person that you want to be? Because that wildly changes things again. As you start to develop and grow those relationships, you also will start to become more purposeful in your activities. Because I'll figure out that my entrepreneurial way was wildly different than these guys' ways. One of the things I just recently learned from my mentor. Several of us have investment properties, right? So even in this room. I don't know if you're aware right now that interest rates are going up. If you're not aware right now, you will be in 4 years when that note comes due, right? Because all of a sudden, your cash flow is going to go like this because the bank's going to take the difference of it, right? Your interest rate's going up. Did you know that there's an answer to it? So my mentor, right, that has, I mean, he makes my investment portfolio look like a peanut, right? These are people that own 2,000 properties. They take their loans and they package them up and they sell them as non-recourse loans to venture capitalists. Amazing. They have zero interest rate risk, meaning they have 20 and 30-year terms on their loans. Not bad? This is what rich people do. So they have fixed rate loans for 20, 30 years, which means next year when interest rates go up, my profit margin goes down, theirs stays the same. Huh, not bad, huh? Pretty good. In fact, not only that, it's a non-recourse loan, which means if the project goes south, they get to walk away and go, you know what, you guys keep it. There's no recourse. There is no consequence to them defaulting on the loan. That's what it means. Beautiful? This is beautiful. This is purposeful? Does this take me from going, hey, I thought my way was pretty good? There's a better way. I need a mentor. I need people in my world that are doing it at a far higher level than me to do this thing. Do you know why Gary Keller's top 200 mastermind is so popular? Because Gary's doing it at a higher level than all these people. So you take the top 200 agents in the country, they can't wait to get in the room with him for a day and listen to him talk. Do you know why? He's their mentor. He's showing them better models, giving them better techniques. We have to plug into that stuff somewhere, right? So where are you going to find it? That's how you get purposeful. Install the systems. Time block. Create checklists. Test the systems to make sure they work. Who's guilty of implementing stuff and not ever testing it, right? And then figuring out that 2 months later it's not working and you just kind of abandon it and you move on. Bring in accountability. There's that A word again. How do we bring in accountability when it comes to being purposeful? Oh, you have a magic answer. Go ahead.
Have a coach.
Have a coach. So right, I mean, I get that that's the trick answer, but she's not wrong. How do you invite accountability? Until I open my world up to a coach, right? Will anybody ever get to see right behind the curtain and know where the warts are? Once they do, Tara Bienvenu is my coach, and that's what she does for me all the time, right? She's like, well, why did you do that? And it's like, well, this is the way I do it. And she's like, well, if there's a better way, would you want to know? I'm like, seriously? But that's the look behind the curtain, right? That's what coaches do. It's a coach, it's a mentor, it's wherever you can open up in order to have somebody else get that exposure. Easy, right? When you look at your goal, so let's look back at that goal that we wrote in the first chapter. When you look at it entrepreneurially, I'm trying to rephrase this. How do you look at it purposefully? What is it that's missing in your life that you need to implement in order to get closer to that goal? Nothing? What do you need to do to become purposeful about that goal? Discipline and willpower will work.
I would say use a 4-1-1 and actually implement it weekly and daily.
Implement the 411. Seriously, that is a very purposeful tool, right? That will absolutely move things forward. What else does purposeful look like? Admin. Does anybody land in that category of I just need to hire an admin? I need help?
I bet you see lots of hands. I know some of you guys have had conversations with me.
It's alligator arms all of a sudden, right? Everybody's like, oh my gosh, no, right? No, that's not me. Here's the thing about help. It is by far the scariest thing. It's not necessarily about hiring somebody tomorrow. What's the first step in hiring an admin? What do you need to do?
Figure out where you need help.
There's a lot of stuff that happen at the same time, right? Where do I need that person, for what? How do I pay them? You have to purposely sit down, intentionally make a plan to make it happen, and you have to remove the excuses, find someone to mentor you. We have the MREA, we have all of our market center leadership. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and sometimes we're our own enemy in stopping us from making that happen. And we look at it as, I'm going to have to give up control, I'm going to have to give up money, instead of thinking in the right mindset of, what do I stand to gain? What do I stand to give another person in their professional life and personal life by doing this? You probably have the Jesus answer of the one thing you have to do next, but there's a lot of things that have to happen.
I don't. Go ahead.
That's another thing that I was gonna say, like, obviously I advocate for admins, because I am an admin. But one of the things that, and my max coach taught me years ago, is that a good admin will multiply their salary by 4.
Oh, 4 times.
4 times the salary you're paying them is what they should be bringing back to you to lead gen more, it gives you that time, but also they should be doing activities that
Allows you
lead
to
gen for the
sleep at night.
business.
Can we do some math?
Go ahead.
All right. 4 times. All right, so this is not wrong, right? So you guys know Gene Rivers. This is Gene Rivers' model, right, that I fell in love with one day, and I'm like, oh my gosh. That actually makes sense. Let's assume that you can do 30 units on your own as a solo agent, right? 30 units, I don't know what your average commission is, but 200,000-ish? So $6,000 commission, right? So you're making $180,000 a year. It's a good business, right? It's good business. If you hired an admin, right? So what comes in here now an admin comes in, you can technically add like 20 units with an admin. How much does an admin cost in Edwardsville? $40,000. So I'm making $40,000. Most of the time we look at this and go, hey, my 180 is going to cost me 40. No way am I coming home with 140, right? Because that's not nearly enough. Somebody's only making 20 and they're mad.
Like some days I break it down and I'm like, hey, $3. And I told her how happy she was doing it.
There's danger, all kinds of danger in these conversations. But check this out. 20 more units at $6,000 a piece is how much? $120,000. Now you're only talking about a 3-to-1 return instead of a 4-to-1 return. But anybody going to pass up a 3-to-1 return on their money? So think about this agent now is now making $300,000 minus 40 is now making $260,000 doing what they love. Doing what they're good at, which is meeting people, lead gen, right? And you're negotiating contracts. I love that part. I don't know about you guys, but that's just fun. All right, so I'm doing what I love. And what am I not doing? The stuff that I don't love. That's required. I don't want to order inspections. I don't want to follow up on the appraisal. I'm not good at that stuff. I don't want it. I don't like it. So anyway, now all of a sudden I'm making $260,000 bucks. Now here's the problem: is that most agents that I talk to go into this and go, 40 grand? Are you kidding me? Right? I mean, even so, I don't have the cash flow to do it. Right? How much is 40? That's what? Almost 4,000 a month? 3,000 something per month? Here's the deal. Gene Rivers talks about it all the time, is that no. If you've been to career visioning, you know that you're only hiring somebody for 90 days. 90 days. That means when I hire Jessie, I'm making her the offer that says, look, in the next 90 days, here's what I need to have happen in order for you to have a job on day 91. And it's not because I don't want you to have a job. I love you, right? I mean, I love everybody I hire. And I don't ever want to let it go. But the truth is if this doesn't happen, my business is no longer profitable, and I can't afford to have either of us at that point. And I'm staying. So 90 days in, you just understand this going in. Now, what's somebody do the math? Let's call it $3,000 a month. $3,000 for 3 months. I'm talking about a $9,000 investment. $3,000 per month. An agent doing this will absolutely figure out how to pay $3,000 a month for 3 months. Right? This is a short-term commitment. You understand it, right? What happens in 3 months? Why is 90 days magic? Real estate is a 90-day business. Have you ever heard that? Now here's where the problem lies, is because agents... You said what?
I said, no, I had never heard that.
All right. So here's the way real estate works. Day one, you decide you're going to go sell a house, and what do? You go lead generate. And I find somebody who wants to buy, or invest in real estate. Well, it takes me about 30 days to show them a property. Right? So in the next 30 days, we're going to be getting to know these people and doing whatever, and then it takes me about 45 days to close it. So I'm about 90 days from the day that I start my lead generation to the day that I get my paycheck is about 90 days.
Thank you.
If you can't do the lead generation, what's your advice to me?
Me?
If I can't do the lead generation in order to create a paycheck in 90 days, what advice would you give me?
I would say that you need to take some of your administrative jobs off your plate.
Oh, you're far kinder than I would, because I would say you need to get out of the real estate sales business.
Well, but I think it's very relative. Like if you're gonna, first of all, speaking as an admin and a former admin and blah, 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 if you are hired an admin and you continue to do the tasks that you hired the admin for, that 90 days doesn't even make any bit of difference.
You hear it? This is where the problem shows up, right? Because now we get into this problem where I'm paying out money for somebody to come do these other jobs so that I can do what?
Oh, sorry.
Which is where most of us are going to fall. Lead generate. Because the failure at this point, when you go through the career visioning process and you hire somebody, the failure to make $9,000 at the end of 90 days is the agent's fault, not the admin's. Oops. And you're right, it's a micromanaged problem, because what I want to do is show them all the checklists, and here's all the awesome things that we do and whatever else, and then I'll keep doing them, and I won't lead generate, which won't create more business.
And please understand, I did that to my own assistant when I was an agent. She was like, get out.
I understand completely.
Yeah, you know.
I would bet that there's nobody in this room that doesn't have personal experience, if you've gone through the hiring process and done that, doesn't have personal experience doing that exact same thing. I've done it my entire career.
Truth is though, you know within 30 days if you made the.
Oh, yes, that's true. So she's not wrong. If I'm doing my job and I'm still having problems in here, you're going to know real fast.
Yeah, it shows up.
It shows up. So the beautiful thing is in here, I'm limited. I'm going to limit my loss to $9,000. If I do my job right, however, right, I'm going to end up with 3 times this. I'm going to end up with 27,000 because of the lead generation I did on the front end. I just picked up those many more closings. Go
And
ahead.
to speak a little bit more scalable.
Please.
We love things that are scalable. Is that 4 times the amount that you're paying your admin. So if you're only paying a virtual assistant to work in your database 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week, it's 4 times whatever that is. So they're doing less for you, but you're also paying them less, but it's still freeing up time for you to do income producing activities.
Yeah, income producing activities. Those are the key words, right? Because most of us take this and we go, remember what we wanted right up front? We wanted freedom. That doesn't mean that I wanted to go, that doesn't mean that I wanted more time to go work. That means I wanted more time to go play golf. And so most of the time we go, hey, I got that part handled now, I'll be on the golf course. Let me know if you need something, right? And what happens?
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work. That does not build a big business. Truly.
Well, I also think it depends on the admin. Oftentimes agents try to give someone who doesn't necessarily, I'm a big fan of the KPA, I'm a big fan of the DISC test, so it depends on, you know, if you're gonna do this with them or they have a knowledge. I hired an assistant one time who didn't know anything about computers, only she told me she did. Then I gave her a test.
And she didn't.
She didn't, and I was like, you're a sweetheart, but you gotta go.
I'll one up you. I hired a guy once that did the exact same thing, and you know what? She didn't know how to use Gmail. It was like first day on the job, and she's like, "What's Gmail?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, right? You can't work here. This is not going to work." Hours. Can I? Inside of this conversation is something that we would call E2P. Entrepreneurial is, I'm going to come interview you. Do you know what happens to me when I interview people? I've been interviewing Frank for a couple of weeks now. What did I tell you already that happens to me when I interview people?
That he falls in love with the person right off the bat.
I fall in love with everybody.
I just said I'm a big marshmallow when I do that.
I love everybody. I'm like, oh man, that's so awesome, right? Let's do this together.
No.
It's generally a mistake. That's me entrepreneurially. Me purposefully is going through career visioning. I've done that class a dozen times, right? And every time I'm like, yeah, I've done it. I did it last week. So career visioning is the thing that goes, how do you get purposeful? You go implement a model. Does this feel like a model that we're doing? Oh, he doesn't really know. That's not a fair question to you. I'm sorry. Here's the deal. He's kind of going, are you going to hire me or what are you doing? And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, but I got another, we got to do this first. We got to do this first. And what he doesn't know is there's still like 3 steps left in our process.
Actually, I'm kind of aware. I know that it's going to be a process.
But anyway.
I'm enjoying it all.
But the goal is to stay as rigid to that process as possible, because otherwise I get in the way.
I've also noticed, like, when I skip a process, like the references,
Oh.
or the expectation, section, then I fail myself, you know, because I end up going, crap, I could have caught that.
Yep.
You know, or I could have saved us both a lot of time. But, yeah, I do tend to.
So here's the problem with models. Once we get the model, we get creative with the model.
Yeah.
Right? So I go, okay, good. Gary's got this thing figured out called the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. He says he can make $1 million doing that, but you know what? I can get there faster. If I just hire the buyer agent first, I'll get there faster, because think how much more a buyer agent would do, right? In fact, they're producing money. They're not costing me money, they're producing money. So therefore, show me one that's been awesome at it. It just doesn't exist. So we do get creative. The hiring process is the same. I will put creativity all over that thing. You guys remember I don't know if you guys still have the model pictures. You know the model. He's got the one that's got the upside down triangle, right? And it's because it's not built on that firm foundation of the model. Stick to it. This is the perfect practice conversation again. Entrepreneurial. How good are you? Ahas? Anything new there? Feels old hat? Gene Rivers, by the way. He continues this conversation and says, you should make a hire every 90 days, right? And I love that. I mean, what I love about that is I'm like, yeah, charge, right? Let's go do that. And then I go, wait a minute, seriously? That's really a lot of work. And it's not that it's a lot of work, it's different work than I'm used to. I'm used to going out and helping people buy, sell, or invest in real estate. This is leadership work. So if you really want that, this is every 90 days you're hiring new people. It's a big business. All right. Ahas? None? Everybody's going to be purposeful now? Good, good. I'm glad we got that resolved. Learning based. What does it mean to be learning based?
Continue to keep on learning because there's a lot of people that know a lot more than you know.
A lot of people know a lot more than I know, for sure.
My second favorite quote to live by is that if I'm the smartest person in the room, it's trying to find a good room.
Yeah, yes. So you kind of wonder what you're still doing here? Not what you meant.
There's always going to be someone that has a bigger knowledge base or a different idea, and when you can constantly be a sponge of that, you're always going to be able to put pieces together that you never thought you could go for.
Yeah. There is something to that. There's a making a commitment to always putting yourself where you're the stupidest person in the room. Right? I think that's powerful. It's good. What does you hear when you hear learning based?
Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement.
Being in curiosity.
How do we get curiosity?
Always curiosity.
Application.
What's the evidence of somebody that's learning based?
Behavior changes.
A reader. Oh, behavior changes.
They ask questions.
I think they ask questions.
They're coachable.
And they're coachable. But yes, I agree with that. I don't know if you've ever heard those 4 competencies of basically learning, right? I always get it backwards. Let's go here. Competent. I don't write well, so just deal with it. Incompetent. Unconscious and conscious, okay? These are listed as a list in your book on page 37, but I always like these 4 square boxes, right, because they just give me a better visual. We all start when we're learning a new skill as something called unconscious incompetent, right? So I'm unconscious and I'm incompetent, I fall in this box. Unconscious incompetent, which means I don't know what I don't know, right? If you remember back to when you were learning to drive a car, right? If somebody would have told you that just by observing driving a car, do you have any idea how to drive a car? You are unconscious incompetence. I can see somebody doing it, but I don't really know what it takes to steer it and stop it and do all of the things. So I really don't know until what happens? You put yourself in the driver's seat, right? And now all of a sudden when you sit in the driver, I just did this with my 15-year-old daughter, so it's kind of fun, but so she's sitting in the driver's seat, and what happens? Oh my gosh. I mean, we're in the church parking lot, right? And she's like, oh my gosh. Oh my God. I mean, it's just crazy. So all of a sudden, she becomes conscious incompetent. It became very clear very quickly that she did not know how to drive a car. She was conscious of her incompetence. Makes sense, right? So what happens to somebody that's conscious incompetent? They either decide that they're going to quit, or hey, you know what? I'm going to figure out actually how to do this thing. That may require taking some lessons. There's a reason why they have driver's education for 15-year-olds in high school. Because somebody needs to train them into it. And what happens is they start training, right? We drove around that church parking lot for an hour, and all of a sudden she gets into a spot where she can do this, right? Although she's conscious, competent at that point, meaning I can drive the car. I know how to put it where it needs to go. I need to do everything, but I'm very conscious of it. Did you ever watch it? Because her hands do not leave 10 and 2. It's not. It's like 9 and 5, 9 and 3 now or whatever. But her hands do not leave the steering wheel. She cannot think for a second about what's on the radio. Cannot. Right? So this is if I don't focus, I'm going to wreck this thing. And she will. And when she looks away, right, all of a sudden the car's going the same way. So she's conscious and competent. As long as I've got my hands on the wheel, I'm good. Most of us now, though, not most of us, all of us now, land in this spot down here, though, where we are now unconscious, competent. You're conscious, unconscious, competent, which means we know how to do it without even thinking about it. Because when you drove here this morning, you didn't think about where you were going. The car seems to just find its own way. And I changed the radio 14 times, and I drank my coffee, and I might even have sent 3 or 4 texts. I know none of you did. Because email, right? I just email. I don't text. Right? But that's unconscious competence, is because we don't have to think about the driving part. It kind of happens naturally. Our body is adjusted to it. That's how learning works. Not just in driving. This works in real estate. When you went on your first listing appointment, actually before, when you were in real estate school, you didn't even know what a listing was. You're unconscious and competent. All of a sudden, you go to a listing appointment, what happens? You're like, holy crap. Right? How do I do this? Today, after you've done it a handful of times, you're like, yeah, I got it, although, right, I'm going to be very prepared and I'm not going to mess with it. I'll bet you anything that Ginger doesn't think much about listing appointments anymore. She can walk out the door and just be in the house and kind of wing it. She's not winging it, by the way. She's unconscious competent, right? She's got her 10,000 hours in. I already know what to say. I don't need to go rehearse it. That's the goal. One of my favorite stories, you guys all know who Richard Branson is. He wrote a book called Losing My Virginity. It was his first book, right? It's all about Virgin Atlantic and his companies. Losing My Virginity was all about how do I build these things and turn them into these behemoths and these powerhouses that they are today, right? His follow-up book to that came out just a handful of years ago. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago. It's called Finding My Virginity. Because what he discovered in this process is that the fun was not in the end game of the business, wasn't in losing it. It was finding it. Because the fun in our lives lives right in this world, right here. The more times we can find ourselves in this conscious, incompetent space and figure out that we don't know something and go learn it and then go master it, that's where true happiness and true joy and fulfillment shows up in our lives. Right? So one of my challenges today is the same, and you've kind of heard me dance around it, which is my businesses are going in different places than I expected them to be. And it's really hard for me because you know what I love is being a salesperson. I can sit and I could go sell a house all day long. It's not even, I live in this unconscious, competent world. I can sell them, not think about it, it's not stressful, it's not hard. And yet, that's not where I'm called to be. I have to move on. We all have to move up to this next level. The next level is, how do you lead it? How do you get other people to do it? How do you set it up so that you don't have to do it and you're giving other people the opportunity? It's a whole different level. I'm here. right? I land on this thing where I go, oh my gosh, so much stuff I don't know. How do I go find it? That to me is being learning based. Truly, the story of Richard Branson always hits me. Keller Williams gives you more tools than any other company that I'm aware of to do it, right? So if you want the commercial, it starts to show up on these next pages. Look at pages 61, 63, 65. I don't know if your pages are the same as mine. I'm assuming that. Gary Keller. We used to train it all the time, and I haven't heard it for a long time. But Gary Keller used to say, Keller Williams is an education company. We're a training and education company disguised as a real estate company. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Do you believe it when you get into this business? I learned a long time ago that if you're going to be the OP of a market center, you get three weeks worth of work in a month and 1 week of training. All right, it is insane. I'm headed to Austin on Sunday, and I'm like, what in the world am I going to Austin for? More training, right? It's not a bad thing, right? It's a hard thing, but it's not a bad thing. This is how we maintain these learning base. If you're an agent, think of all the stuff there is. Think of all the classes there are. I'm sure there's 6 books hanging right there on the wall. Right, so there is no end to the amount of places that you can go look for these things. The mentor path. There is no company like Keller Williams in the world that allows you this mentor path. I was on the phone with an OP in California the other day having a conversation about doing different office things and whatever, right? I mean, tell me another company that does that. As real estate agents, I don't know if you're doing that or not. I don't know if you go to Fannie Reunion and meet people that you can go network with and send referrals to and do all these things. I don't know, but you can. Right? So the benefit of being learning based is that you kind of get to pick, where do I want to go? And now go find the people in this company that can help you put those pieces together. Make sense? You look at your goal. What do you need to learn? Anybody? I know that there's apparently a handful of us that need to learn this. So I read this book last year. It's called Who Not How. I read this book last year, and it is all about when you think of something that should be done, right? So we're talking about right now, we're adding a service business to our construction company, right? So it's kind of an affiliate that'll serve both the real estate and the construction company. Service business would be, you're closing on a house on Friday and it needs a microwave hung and the dishwasher needs to be fixed or whatever else. You need to be able to call one person and one person goes and fixes it, sends you the bill, no questions asked, it's done, right? And you can get it done fast. You don't have to worry about the handyman. My job, my company's job will be, we'll hire the handyman. We already know all these people. We'll hire them, we'll staff them, we'll do all the things, and all you have to do is call me, we'll schedule it, send you an estimate, we'll go get it done. You're done. Service to realtors, right? Service to my construction company, we can warranty that. Service to my sales team, we can service my whole sales team, or my whole database, because now a database call says, oh hey, yeah, we're not thinking about our house. In fact, we're thinking about remodeling, or we're thinking about doing this. I sure need new appliances. We have a whole team that we can go out and send people along the way, right? So this is a never-ending conversation with our customers. Guess what? How do you do that?
Delegate.
Oh, how do you build a business like that? I mean, do you have any idea how busy I am?
Hire somebody. Delegate.
It's a who, not how. Right? How do you build this business? That's the wrong question. The right question is, who do you need to be in business with that wants to go build this company?
Yeah, or at least who do I know that can get this done?
Absolutely. So this book speaks to that in a big, big, big way. You reading it?
No.
You don't want this one?
I'm good at delegating. I know what I'm not gonna do. I'm gonna find somebody.
All right, you get to have who, not how.
Thank you.
No, seriously, it's So, what do you need to learn? Part of what I needed to learn in order to go build that business is who, not how. I needed somebody to tell me, hey, stop thinking about it that way, find a different way to look at it. How about you?
It's kind of a mixed message we get sometimes, especially when we first join Keller. I think we come in with this fire hose of knowledge. We've that we never even knew existed. And then all of a sudden we're spindling it and we're like, oh, I need to learn it all. It is all there, I need to know it all right now, I can't start working until I know it all. And what I've learned for me, and some of you are way better at this than me, you can learn multiple things at once, I cannot. I would love to, and I want to ask her, oh, I should do this, I should do that, I can't do it all at once. Is decide based on all these skills assessments you do, where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and based on that, then decide what your learning path is going to be. And focus on that instead of becoming so overwhelmed, because you can become so overwhelmed when you first jump into our world, and it will paralyze you. And you'll feel like you're incompetent, you'll feel like you can't move forward, you'll feel defeated sometimes, but when you go back to what you were teaching earlier, when you have that SMART plan to begin with, you can focus on a learning path, one thing at a time, and you don't have to get into all of it and feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. When I first got here, I've been to a couple other companies, and I got here, I was like, because it was so much.
Yep.
And then I realized that I gotta go back to like the don't know, and figure out what was missing for me to be able to learn.
Yep.
And once I did that, it felt a little easier. Still was with the fire hose, but it's okay.
Right.
But if you're in your don't know, and you don't know the space you're coming from, why you behave a certain way, like I can't learn or whatever. Because I had it like that. I was like, I can't learn all this stuff.
Right? I think something, go ahead.
Honestly, it's also important to know that like you don't have to be an expert before you do something.
Amen.
You become an expert along the way. You
Amen.
learn as you go, and you learn better when you do. They always say like, you know something when you can teach it to somebody else, and you get that by doing it and by learning it.
100%. And you get a lot of people that will just never put themselves in this spot, right? Because it's just whatever, it's terrifying or whatever else. I have to become something else. I also find that there's a handful of people I come across that land in this space of, I would call boredom. Right, so there's a handful of real estate agents that kind of get to their peace level, and they're like, well, I'm making enough, I'm doing okay, and whatever else, and just don't get excited about the next thing or excited about growing or whatever else. And that may be a conscious choice. If it is, hats off to you, right? And go live that life. Most of the time, it's a default choice where I've just stopped learning the next thing because I've found this baseline and it's just comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the point where we have to go find something uncomfortable to do. That's the point where something like Family Reunion or Mega Camp will show up to you and you'll go, oh my gosh, I just put myself around somebody that's doing something a little bit different, and that sounds exciting. It may not be that at all. It may be entree leadership is a thing that's been on my list to go to, and I just haven't done it yet. But that's, again, a place that puts me a little bit out of my comfort zone. I promise you, somebody's going to say something in that room that I'm going to go, oh yeah, duh, right? Should have come to this 10 years ago. Where's that next thing? That was probably you when you came to Keller Williams. You fell into this thing where it's all of a sudden big and whatever, and now we've landed in this comfort zone. How do we step back out of it? How do you go back into this finding my virginity mode of I'm going to go think and grow bigger?
There's also the process of breaking something too.
Tell me more.
Like, breaking it. So if you have a set way of doing things, and you're kind of like, ho hum, I gotta go out, I gotta have a listing agreement, ho hum, break it. In other words, do it opposite, do it something different. Go do a divorce situation, go do a short sale.
Don't get a divorce, just go do it. Yeah, I understand.
Hazards of the business. But yeah, I think just breaking what you already have that's working.
Yeah, and those are really hard things inside of our own businesses. There are 1,000 systems that we already have implemented that may or may not be the best ones. There's no doubt. It's good. Talk to me about limiting beliefs.
I always felt like I was bugging somebody when I was calling them.
Oh.
One of my big beliefs I had.
You were bugging people. What'd you discover?
That if I came from a place of contribution and I was seeing what I could do to help them, it made it easier for me, and they were a lot more receptive to take my phone call.
It's fair. That's a good one. Particularly anybody that's newer in the business or otherwise, this fact that, hey, I'm always bothering people, or they don't want to talk to me, or I'm a nuisance, I think that's real. What limiting beliefs show up in this business?
I don't have time for that. Whatever that is.
What'd you say?
I don't have time for that.
Oh, time. I really don't have time. I can relate with that one, right? I mean, that's very real.
Goal setting.
Tell me more.
I think people set low ceilings for themselves when it's time to set the goals at the beginning of the year. And they make it an achievable number that they know that they can achieve instead of something that's a little scarier.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, right? So lots of limiting beliefs show up around goal setting.
That's exactly what that is right there, because Ginger's all like, yeah, she's all excited about that answer, and I'm like, no, that's the D in her that loves that answer.
I was with another
I
office.
think it's just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, right? And that's what he was saying, like, we're uncomfortable doing it.
Absolutely.
You know?
The other risk is don't you know the agent that sets the goal of $1 million their first year?
Right.
I've coached enough agents brand new into the business, and do you know what every brand new agent's goal is their first year in business? $100,000. Do you know what the average real estate agent makes?
50?
Like $32,000. Do you know what the average first year agent makes? It's like $5,000 or $10,000. It's like nothing. So it's just ironic to me. So I do think it goes the other way. The quote that I always love, and it's Gary's quote. He says that most people set goals. What is it? It's the 1 year and 5 year. Will set too big of a goal their first year. How's it go?
Yeah.
And far underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
In 5 years.
They'll overestimate what they can do in 1 year,
Yeah.
and you'll underestimate what you can do in 5.
And I
Right.
believe that to be true. I've experienced that myself.
As have I. And so the challenge, I agree, is how do I set a big enough goal, right? And there's always this perspective of you're going to become who you became. My father used to read me this poem all the time, and that he had memorized, but it was always I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more, right? Or let's say bargain with life with a penny, and then something about as I counted my scanty store, right? The guy earns a penny. And then at the end of it he says, whatever I would have asked of life, life would have willingly paid. And I believe that, right? I mean, so if you ask for $100,000, I think you can put yourself on track to get it. If you ask for $1 million, I think you put yourself on track to get it. Gary Keller asked for billions. Guess what? He got it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so he's asking for more than I will ever ask. Go.
Do you think that it's because when we ask for something and we kind of in the back of our mind we know we can get it, or I think dreaming big is like thinking into that. It almost draws you into it. I think about it as when you're going on vacation, right? And you're like, man, I gotta get all this done. You can get so much done in a day if you know you're going to opening day or something special. But that's what I'm thinking of it like. Like I want to do this, this, and this, and I put this long goal out there.
Okay.
If I put it shorter, then I gotta get it done so I can go do that. I'm trying to.
What's the difference between a limiting belief and a pie in the sky, right? So there is a challenge to this think bigger thing is that sometimes we land on this, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire, and I have no intention of ever being a millionaire, right? Maybe I don't have I don't know. So what's the difference between actually setting a limiting belief and being an achiever?
Urgency factor?
I was about to say, I hear it's just an urgency when I'm listening.
Urgency?
Yeah.
Or purpose?
Competence or confidence?
I said confidence.
Yeah.
100% I agree.
Or like really believing it, like feeling it and passionate by it.
Yeah, and I would argue that there's a choose component in here. Do you choose it?
That's what it is.
Because quite honestly, I think that my time is limited on this earth, I think, but could I be a billionaire? Maybe. Between now and in the next 20 years, could I earn $1 billion? Probably, I can tell you right now, I don't have the constitution to do it, right? I don't want to work that hard. Who heard a limiting belief in there? Is it hard work to make $1 billion?
It depends on who you ask.
Who said no? Tell me more.
Well, so in the big scheme of things, everything is as you speak it, right? And once you speak it into being, that's what it is. So if you say, oh my gosh, I don't really feel like working that hard, and I'm like, me neither, because in my head, I always think that getting $1 million is a hard work, but it really isn't if you think it isn't. Because you're following the steps to get there, you're doing the baby steps. By the time you do your little baby steps, you're there.
One of the best things that I've done since I joined Shannon's team and started here with my maths coach was my GPS and taking a look at my 5-year goal and then using that to create 1-year goals and quarterly goals. And it is truly wild because your 5-year goal can be anything and it can be as big as you want it to be. And if you've never done a GPS, if you've never done a GPS and actually knock that down to like, these are the actions I have to take weekly, monthly, whatever, it does that for you. And then it makes that really crazy big goal that you have actually like, this is just 5 things I have to do every day.
Yeah.
And according to this map, that will get me where I need to go if I do 5 specific things every single day.
And limiting beliefs becomes an opportunity now. We have that conversation every year at retreat. Like, okay, what's that goal? Oh, but you know, that's just a dream. No, it's not a dream. It's not a dream to make it happen.
Yeah, and then you see, like, this is what we have to sell every year to make that happen, and in
Right.
order to do that, we have to do this much lead generation. And like, you can do it with anything in your life.
Whatever it is, yeah. What do I have to learn to go to that next adventure?
And don't you think too, Shannon, and company over there, I can't see you all, I'm like, you can see us over there. Don't you think too, it's also pivoting when something doesn't, like if you're on your, because GPS is new to me, I'm only 1 year Keller, so I had to like pivot on a whole bunch of my stuff, because I was a little unrealistic, I think, wasn't I? So, that was what scared me, I knew what I had to do, and what I had to continue to do, but then I was like, well, I gotta change this so it's not like crazy talk.
Right? Okay. We get that somewhere along the way, right, our limiting belief starts to sound like crazy talk. We've talked about it being hard work. We've talked about being whatever. I don't know that I believe that, right? I don't know that I believe Elon Musk actually works harder than the rest of us.
He works smarter, he focuses on his 20%.
Yeah, he knows what to work
I
with.
think he
Pretty
believed it.
long
Oh,
hours.
yeah, he's pretty.
And
he's
he's
a-
probably focusing on his 20%. He's one of those small
He
things.
breaks things down into 5-minute intervals. I
Hey,
mean, that's, you talk about.
I'm just telling you, if somebody can do it, what's wrong with my thinking and not being able to get there? Here's where I want to get to. How do we get into unlimited thinking? Clearly, Elon Musk thinks unlimited.
Yeah,
He does not have he builds rocket ships.
yeah.
When you're not attached to the outcome.
Tell me more.
How do you get there? We get there when you're not attached to the outcome. Okay, I'm gonna get 50 no's today when I lead generate. So I'm not gonna do it because I'm gonna get 50 no's. But I just want the one yes. So when I lead generate, I'm gonna keep going until I get the one yes.
Sure.
That's a whole other train of thought that removes the limiting belief.
I love that. I think also too, you have to know where your limiting beliefs coming from. Like really deep core. I'll give you the quickest example I had. All my life I had a bunch of jobs. When I was a little girl, my dad said, don't come back to me a quitter. So every time I would get really good at a job, I could quit because I wasn't a quitter, I was accomplished and the expert. So that's where that belief came from. I couldn't stay in a job once I was good at it. I had to move on so I could be the accomplished. I know that.
Our programming has very much to do with the beliefs that we hold and whether we limit ourselves or not. My own father told me I could never make $1 million by the time I was 30. Right? It shows up, right? I mean, my dad's awesome, right? He's really not that guy. But it is a conversation that I remember.
So did you make $1 million by 30?
I did, actually. And I didn't go to him and go, see, I told you.
It's a generation that always said, in order to, you have to get up in the morning, work hard, go make your money, and then you make a savings account, you buy a house, and you have kids, and blah, blah, blah. They didn't have that concept of creativity, most of them, and then the concept of creativity and making your own path.
My father was never exposed to this stuff,
Exactly,
right?
right there.
So, how do we get ourselves into unlimited conversations, right? What's an unlimiting phrase? Here's the thing that I find myself not doing enough of. I'm pretty good at saying, oh, it's too hard to do that. That's a lot of work. Or I'm not good at hiring people, or whatever. All of these limiting things that show up in my life. I do have one phrase that I use all the time that gets me to a point of unlimiting. So one of the ways that I talk myself into unlimiting, and you've heard it already today, whether you picked it up or not. I believe that I was created to be something special. I believe that I was created for a purpose. I believe that I have some work to do on this earth that will be important to somebody. I don't really know what that looks like. I believe that it's my job to go figure it out. So my unlimiting belief all the time is becoming who I was created to be. You've heard it said. So when I start thinking, when I think of myself in terms of who I was created to be, I have a much bigger picture of myself than I do when I just look at myself in the mirror. So, I don't know if you guys have an unlimiting phrase that you use. I'm telling you, it's hugely powerful. I don't use it for that purpose, for what it's worth. I actually had to have somebody point it out to me one day and said, this is your unlimiting belief. And I'm like, seriously. And it totally made sense. So, I don't know if you guys have one. The real question is, how do you get one? How do you get to the spot where you always see yourself as potential, unlimited? Flip the script. And I love that. So you're 100%, and this is crazy hard. So can everybody identify with a limiting belief that you have? You don't have to share it. If you want to, it's fine. But I'm going to ask you to write it down. There's not a space on the paper for it. But just find somewhere and write down, what is your limiting belief? It can be anything, right? It may have something to do with your sales goal. It may have something to do with the goal that you wrote today.
Well, I just remember my mom was like, I'd ask her for stuff and she'd be like, money doesn't grow on trees. You know what I mean? Like,
I know what
stuff
you
like
mean.
that was like instilled in me as a child. So I flipped the script and it's like, I say to myself, money comes to me easily and frequently. And I did that for like 3 years, and now that limiting belief is actually gone. But it took me to an adult to really realize that those little things she was saying to me as a child, like, affected my success.
Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. The first chapter of the book talks about that.
Yep.
I was taught growing up that you couldn't waste any food. And you know the famous phrase, people in X country are starving. You have to eat everything on your plate. Your refrigerator should be cleaned out, which my goal was to lose my weight. So that I just realized that was an aha moment for me, that I didn't remember that my mom and my dad always, you said that, Ginger. My mom and my dad always said, clean your plate.
Right?
Yeah.
No wasting food.
Eat, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I will eat when I don't even want to eat because I don't want it to go bad, nor do I want to throw it out.
Yep.
You don't want to be wasted.
Right, that was just a huge aha.
Anybody have a big listing goal this year? What was that?
I said, we're getting deep here.
I know, right? That's why I'm going to the listings. I'm like, oh my gosh. Seriously. And no, in all seriousness, this is where the good stuff lives.
Yeah.
When you can find the time and you can find the energy and you can find the peace and the confidence to reach into your soul and dig those things out, that's where the good stuff lives.
And just stop and like go, gosh, why did I just say that to myself? You know, like listening to yourself and the negative talk helps.
Anybody picked up the practice of journaling?
I do too.
Yep.
Some. Do you ever read back through them?
Yep.
Yeah, it's terrifying, isn't it?
I'm amazed I passed high school, frankly. I can go back to my journaling.
I don't know about this, but partly through the practice of journaling for myself is where I kind of come up with a lot of this limiting discovery, right? Where you go, whoa, wait a minute. I really want to analyze that thing and just go, wait a minute, did I really just say that? That's not who I want to be. right? And when I get into those conversations with myself, I can really pick myself and go, here's who I do want to be. This is where the unlimiting belief comes in, and Ginger's dead on. This is a flip the script. The benefit of writing that limiting belief out is you get the opportunity to go and write the opposite. It's no different than the goal exercise where you set your production at $1 million and you double it and it's $2 million. All of a sudden you go, whoa. But wait a minute, what if I did? Right? And now all of a sudden when that unlimited belief shows up, you start to go, there's possibility here. Maybe I was created for potential. Maybe I was created to be a leader and I just haven't discovered the path yet. Maybe I am destined to be a team leader. The world needs team leaders. I don't know if you guys know that. What are you hearing? Can anybody write an unlimiting statement that feels better than their limiting belief that they want to share? It's all good. It's good work. It's deep work. Man, it's worthwhile. What are your ahas out of limiting beliefs?
We all have them. Everyone looks at everyone else on the outside, oh, that, hey, they got it all together, but when we all stop and are vulnerable with each other, the reality is we all have them. Hopefully we can draw some strength from each other and.
Absolutely.
I think that also affords us some grace too for others, like giving grace to others. Pretty sure I do a lot of it.
Keep talking. I like where you're going with that.
Well, I think sometimes if you can, like Shannon is saying, everybody struggles or everybody has their own, although we're looking from the outside going, oh my gosh, Tony totally has everything going on, totally together. And then you can allow for grace once you realize that that's not actually true. You can go, oh goodness, so-so.
Or that it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah.
Like, I know Shannon, she's an amazing success, but I remember the day she's in the office crying together, it hasn't been a smooth road. I mean, so if you're struggling today, just give yourself grace and know that this is what it can look like at some point if you put the work in and believe in yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with asking for grace.
Yeah.
too. Like, I know
Absolutely.
that, I just sent you that text the other day. I said, that's not what I said those things, but that's not really what happened. You know what I mean? Like, I sometimes have to go, wow, I did not mean it that way. I'm so sorry. This is how I felt about it, but this way.
I do. There's a conversation about grace that shows up in here that I think this world is largely starving for. If you look at the amount of tension between people or otherwise, you walk through this real estate office on any given day, there are tension between more than one or two agents, right? And this lack of grace, I think, shows up from us internally first. So it's my failure to give grace more than it is my failure to receive. And my failure to give it is largely a misunderstanding of who I believe myself to be. And so I love that. And I do think that deep personal work are the things that root that out. And so, yeah, thank you for that. That's a good reminder. Your thoughts?
I was just going to say the limiting beliefs go back to the self-fulfilling prophecy. So the me I see is the me I'll be. What I think about, I bring about. So it really does matter what rolls around up here and here, because that's what we're going to live out, walk out. And if we see ourselves in a limited way, then our actions are going to prove out.
Agreed. I'm going to go back to my words of discipline and willpower because this is what shows up for me. I tend to be a sleepless person, right? Which means that I'll wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I did it last night. And I'm just at work, right? I mean, I just go through over and over and over and over and over. Discipline and willpower. What I'm discovering is that that's not a problem it's not an inherent problem in me. It's a problem of my failure to discipline myself enough to think about the right things. Right, and so it really is a training program. I'm discovering this now, where if I train myself to be disciplined in what I think about, guess what? You'll actually think about that more. I learned this. I'm a swimmer, and my goal is to swim about 10,000 yards a week, and I'm largely successful at it. Let's say this: I'm 85% successful at it, right? Which isn't 100, but hey, you know what? It's good enough. I'm good with it. Here's what I learned though: swimming is a very mindless sport, right? I mean, it's terrible. You start putting 10,000 yards into water, and it's an hour at a time, and you don't get to talk to anybody. You get to talk to yourself, which is very dangerous. Unless you are able to be a disciplined thinker and think about things that will actually improve you. So when you think about, this is where I'm going. When I think about who I was created to be, I win. And it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of willpower to get there. And the more I do it, the easier it gets. It's crazy how that affects different components of your life, right? Because when I clean it up in the pool for an hour, all of a sudden I go home and I'm a little bit nicer. All of a sudden I go to the office and I have a little more time to have a real conversation and not just answer questions quick and put out the fire and move, right? So, becoming human is part of it. If you ever want to go there, you might enjoy this book. Johannes Betts is this guy's name. He has a book called Becoming Human, right? I think it's Becoming Human. But it's all about how do we become the most human. Again, if you go back to this creation story, right? So it's created to be human, right? And you're created in God's image. And now it's about how do you be the best human, right? So it was a powerful book in my life at one point. Anyway. Let me stew on it a minute. It's not becoming human. It's got something to do with human. Betts, B-E-T-Z is the guy's last name. Poverty of spirit. Yeah, has nothing to do with human in the title. It's called Poverty of Spirit. Thank you. It just takes me a minute. Bear with me. I don't know what book speaks to... I don't know what book, of these three books, none of these three books speak to me of limiting beliefs all that much. Who gets the next book? All right, this book, if you have not read this, Mike Michalowicz is his name. It's called Profit First. If you own a business, he is all about how do you get to profit fast. And not just how do you get to profit, how do you get to profit and take it. You take the money off the table and you go do something with it. It's really a powerful read. For real estate agents, his stated mission is to eliminate entrepreneurial poverty. It's a powerful mission statement. Do you know what that means? It means most of us are entrepreneurs, we're business owners, and most of us live in poverty. We just don't know it. And the sad part is I read his stuff and I'm like, he's not wrong. But I can identify with all of it. It's a powerful book. We got one spot left. Right? Accountability. There's a difference between a high achiever and anybody that's mediocre, right, in the sense of accountability. Now, I told you at the beginning what accountability is meant to me as a kid, right, which is my mother literally chasing me with the yardstick. That's what accountability felt like. Many of us have this picture of accountability as a sting or a spanking or something's going to hurt, right? Accountability sucks. Did you ever get there? I've been there. I don't want to be accountable and therefore I avoid it. Is that the way you see it? Somebody give me a different picture of accountability, please.
We confirm something's wrong when someone's holding us accountable. Uh-oh, something's wrong. And then we make up a bunch of meanings about that something's wrong. And then we move out of that space, right?
Right?
I know, because I got the belt more times than I cared anymore.
I can relate. So, here's what we know about accountable people, right? This has always been an interesting chart to me. Accountable people. If you choose to be accountable, here's what you look like. An accountable person seeks reality. Do you remember the first exercise that we did? We started to seek reality. Anybody get uncomfortable with that? I do every time I do it, right? Because I realize that what I want and what I have are there's still a gap, right? So there's an accountability. I actually will seek to put myself into that reality. Do you know what bankrupt people don't do? We're all real estate agents. We all know of somebody that's gone through foreclosure, right? Do you know what they don't do?
Pay their bills.
No, they don't pay their bills. Nor do they call the bank and go, hey, I'm a little short on funds this month. What would happen if I didn't pay my bill? They don't make that call.
They don't answer the phone.
Oh, jeez, they don't answer the phone either. So what do they do, right? I mean, I remember
Leave town quickly.
well, a good friend of mine was going through bankruptcy. He had a building company, was one of my competitors, but he was my friend. Was going through a bankruptcy, and he showed up. He showed up one day on the road to Colorado. They had just gone to the sporting goods store and bought new skis and new ski outfits and everything for the two of them and their two kids. I'm like, dude. Dude.
Not the best way, but there's
What does
no
it
guilt.
What does it matter? There's no guilt. There's no reality either, right? So you seek reality versus you can live in ignorance, right? There's lots of us that would choose to just never face it, never confront it. Maybe you don't want to come to this class because I don't want to know. I already know I'm doing stupid stuff, right? I just don't want to hear about it. I have a 17-year-old that wants nothing to do with reality. I promise you. It just happens. Do non-accountable people show up as denial?
I call it the bill collector mentality.
Oh.
See that they're calling, you just don't answer, so it doesn't exist. Yep.
Doesn't exist. Yeah, as long as I don't pick up the phone, I don't even have to read voicemail anymore, right? Just delete. I get it.
If you're not holding yourself accountable or an accountable person, then you're just going to assume that you don't have to do anything and other things. They will just magically, whatever you want will manifest itself regardless of what you do. And then when it doesn't, you get pissy at other people.
Right.
I think part of it is also like, people sometimes are scared that once I can be held accountable, I'm also responsible for whatever actions happen. But if I don't accept reality, I don't seek reality, then I can, like it says, play the victim and acknowledge that the repercussions of whatever actions have happened are not my own.
Right.
Because we're meaning-making machines, and we make stuff up. I don't know what happened, I had a bankruptcy, I don't know what happened. Forget about it, I don't know.
You know how denial shows up with a lot of real estate agents? Profit and loss statements. I mean, it doesn't show up on the profit and loss statement because we don't even do anything with it, right? So as long as I don't have to look at it, I don't ever have to acknowledge it. It's okay. Checking account still has $22 in it. Actually, I got a closing. I got a closing next month and it's $6,000, so I'm good. If you're not accountable, do you blame people?
My favorite word is I'm being micromanaged.
I love that.
Yes.
Yes.
So are the admins coming to your office and complaining about their rainmakers?
No, actually. No, I hear it more when someone's seeking advice. You say, okay, I'm going to ask you all the hard questions, and then later in a roundabout way it comes back, well, I was just being micromanaged, so I did what I wanted. So.
What other things do we blame as real estate? Do you ever blame the market? How many listings do you have right now? A bunch?
Yeah, there's not a lot out there.
No, there's not a lot out there, right?
They're out there, only 9. They're out there.
You got a lot.
Yeah.
Are they all sold?
All but 2, and then I put another one in today, and
Yeah.
then another one in.
Keep doing that. There's a lot of agents right now that are blaming the market, saying, well, nobody's listing their house right now. I can't. My buyers, there's just not enough houses for my buyers right now, so too bad. Not true, but that's a blame rather than own it, right? Can you find a solution? How do you get to the solution as opposed to creating the blame? This is the no excuses thing for me, right? I mean, I tend to be very hard on myself when I hear myself come up with an excuse for not getting something done, right? And I tend to despise people that sit at my desk and make excuses for things that aren't done. So, just saying. Personal excuses, that was the other one. That's the next one, right? What excuses do you have for not getting it done? Absolutely. My kid got sick. Happens all the time. Car broke down.
I had COVID.
Oh my gosh, man. Is COVID the world's excuse right now, right? Everything is a COVID problem.
The kids were home.
Do you know what?
The fact that the kids were home, that's been an excuse
Oh, and the kids
we
are home,
hear
absolutely.
over and over. The kids were home, I couldn't work.
Excuses show up all over the place. I own a construction company. We are behind on a whole bunch of projects, and 100% COVID blames all of them. You know what the beautiful thing about it is? People believe it today.
Yeah.
People go, oh yeah, it's COVID, I get it, it's okay.
Right.
And I'm like, shoot, seriously? I get another month? I mean, it used to be I get penalized for that. Now I just get away with whatever I want. Pretty awesome. What? An accountable person finds solutions for that. Jesse, have we implemented 10,000 policies so that we are not late on projects anymore, even though supply chain issues are a real issue? Tell me one.
Communication was the main.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
super sad, but communication was the main one.
She's going broad, but I'll give you an example though. Literally, we used to order our garage doors 2 weeks before we need them. Today we order them the day that we pull the permit, right? So it's 20 weeks now to get a garage door. It's stupid, right?
Yeah.
Our process has to change. It's 20 weeks. I can no longer make the excuses, right? The excuse of COVID is no longer valid. Today, that excuse is you didn't plan it right. You need to go fix your system because the world is not the way it was 2 years ago. This is true in the real estate world, by the way.
Yeah.
It is not the same. So that excuse, by the way, the world's buying it for a minute, but it's quickly becoming over.
It's just getting so frustrating hearing it over and over.
Right?
So at some point, people are gonna quit accepting it.
Absolutely.
Some of us never did.
Well, yeah, that's fair. You're one of those. A victim waits and hopes. What does that mean?
It'll get better.
It'll get better.
No action behind it.
They're waiting for somebody else to accomplish or achieve or give or blah, 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 and when they don't, then they have the right to PTO.
There's so many real estate agents, I've heard it in this room a handful of times, there's so many real estate agents that have decided to buy a rental property. Because hey, that's the secret to wealth. If you're a real estate agent, right? I mean, I get it, right? Okay. And a lot of us don't have them yet. Why not? Well, I mean, interest rates are up today for one, so it's probably not a good idea to buy, right? I mean, the market, this is the busiest market we've ever been in, the most expensive market we've been in. I mean, the inventory is really tight, so it'd be probably not super wise to go buy a rental property today, would it? No. Agreed.
Rates and prices are up.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, so it's really bad. We should wait.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we should wait and see what happens though. I mean, they may come down.
Yeah.
Are you doing
Waiting and hoping.
Because you're going to keep going? You're going to win this argument? Is that what you're saying?
Not one of those is stuck on the wall yet.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. An accountable person gets on with it. This is not a wait and see thing. This is I'm going to move forward one way or the other. An accountable person would maybe choose definitively to say, rental property is not for me. So I'm not going to pursue that as an opportunity anymore. Or they're going to go, hey, these are the circumstances I have. These are the parameters I'm going to follow. These are rules that I'm going to engage in order to purchase an investment property. Get on. Do something. Lots of things that we wait and see on.
Well, it perpetuates us to being right then.
Well, I'm never wrong if I don't have to.
If there's no commitment.
100% right. I mentioned a handful of times, right? So one of the key components of accountability in my world is, what do you share? Anybody ever heard of Zig Ziglar?
Gotta set goals.
Yeah, right, exactly. I love Zig Ziglar. In fact, I downloaded his, I have an audio book of his, and it's just fun to listen to, right? I mean, it just kind of gets me back in a thing. But one of the things that he talks about all the time as it comes to goals and accountability is always share your go up goals, right? So he treats a go up goal like I'm going to quit smoking, right? You share that with everybody, right? And then there's some other goals that other people may not support for you, right? So if I walked around my real estate office telling everybody that I wanted to buy $1 million boat and I'm going to go sail the Caribbean and, hey, I appreciate you being a contributor to Keller Williams. Would you be less supportive of my goal?
Right.
Yeah, you'd be like, I'm not funding your boat. Are you kidding me? So truly, there are some people that won't support your goal in the same way, or they may become detractors of your goal, right? So somebody that would say, ooh, right? I mean, that's too big. This may even show up in your family, right? So you may have a family member that's not as big a risk taker as you are. I have one of those, right? Her name is Jennifer, and she is very risk averse. She'll be the very first person to talk to tell you that. She is terrified of my business. Terrified, right? Because at any given time, we have a lot of money invested in real estate specifically. And so, I don't share my goals with her. Now that may sound like that's an awful marriage, but that's by design, right? She doesn't want to know because it keeps her up at night. At the end of the day, she trusts that we've got this under control and I'm not going to take unnecessary risk. The second she asks, by the way, she gets to see everything. She has access to everything. She just chooses not to look at it, right? And that's okay. We found a way to be happy together. But it's the difference, right? So here's the thing. I do know that she's not one that I can go and offer these big dreams to, because she's terrified of it. I do need somebody to do it with, though. Now she'll go to the $1 million boat in the Caribbean all day long, right? She wants that dream. But when it's a, hey honey, I'm going to go invest $5 million so we can go develop these 85 acres, she goes, wait a minute. You sure that's a good idea? Do you see where interest rates are going? Right, she'll come up with all the things. So I don't share those things with her.
Yeah.
I have other advisors that will do this. We call these advisors the 5 in the box. Well, 4 in the box, rather. Page 91. 4 in the box. There are people in your life, there should be people in your life that will hold you accountable to very specific things. Do you have them? So, think about these 4 people in the box. Financial. Your financial world is a very specific component of your life, right? And there are people that are experts in finances, right? Okay, so one of my best friends is named Mark Tucci. He happens to be one of the very best Wells Fargo advisors in the country. I looked into that for what it's worth. But he has all of my money. He has retirement accounts, he has my stock accounts, he has whatever. But I know that he is the very best person to do that. He knows all of my goals. All of them. Financial goals, right? He knows that I want to have a boat. He knows that I want to pay cash for my kids' college. He knows where I am with my real estate investments. He knows where do you know why? Well, yes, because I trust him. Yes, because I trust him. Thank you, because he holds me accountable to getting it done. I mentioned my kid's going to school this year, and I have a daughter that'll be going to school in 4 years, right? And so we started saving money along the way. And guess what happens when you start saving money along the way? Life shows up, right? I mean, the car breaks down, and we got to buy a new car, and all these other things. So maybe you did, or maybe you didn't invest in your college retirement fund the way that you were supposed to. Well, Mark Tucci is one of those guys that will call me up and go, hey, dude, I need some dough. And I'll be like, what? And he goes, you need to send me a check for this, because if you don't do this, you're not going to have enough money in order to get to there. Okay. I mean, if I don't have the money, we get to have a different conversation, right? But this is somebody that reminds you of what your goals are. So when I go and I want to pull $10,000 out to go buy another investment property, do you know what he does? He runs me through the process and says, all right, give me your returns, give me this and this and this, because here's how much I can make you go do better. If you can't do better, I'm keeping it. I'm okay with that conversation, right? Does it keep me out of doodah land? Does it keep me from living in that world?
Yes.
Because you know where I believe that every investment choice I ever made is the best one there ever was. Right? You get why Jennifer's nervous. So, your financial advisor. Here's the challenge. I don't know if you have a financial advisor. So I would tell you, if you don't, go find one. It doesn't really matter who. right? At some stage in your life, it's just a matter of finding somebody that can get you to some level of accountability. We are all going to retire someday at some level, right? If there's a real estate agent in my market that passed away a few years ago. She was in her late 60s, but she got diagnosed with cancer, right? Up to the day that she died, she was out showing houses. She couldn't even go upstairs anymore. She would show the houses. Clients, let the clients go upstairs. They'd come downstairs and she'd talk to them or whatever else right up the offer. I mean, she didn't die showing houses, but she died showing houses. She was working because she had to work. I choose not to do that. I promise you, I cannot do that on my own. I need somebody there. So here's my challenge. Go find one person that you can share this stuff with. It doesn't matter if you even have any money to give them. You could start with $1,000 in an IRA contribution and just go, hey, this gets me started. Let's share some goals. Guess what they'll do? They'll start calling you with some things. Now there's another one. There's another opportunity to upgrade here. Because in my career, I've had 2 different financial advisors, right? I fired one because they didn't like the advice that I was getting. I found somebody better. So as you grow, as you get better and more financially astute, you will find somebody better. The goal is to be with the best in the business. If I had Gary Keller's financial advisor, do you think I would get different advice than I get from mine today? He lives in a different world. At some point, you have to upgrade. You have to top grade the people that are in your box. Otherwise, your accountability stays the same and your life stays the same. Make sense? Spiritual. I don't know where you land on that. If you've ever heard of that thing called the dark night of the soul, it's a real thing. I've had them, right? It's just the nights where you just know you're not right. What do? Often we need people that will speak to us on a spiritual level, right? John Ortberg is an author that I mentioned. He has a book out called Soul Keeping. And it's all about caring for our spirit and taking care of our souls. I believe with all my heart that that is part of us that needs to be cared for, often, most of the time neglected. So, who's your spiritual advisor? Maybe this is a pastor. J.K. Jones is the guy in my box, right? He is the most spiritual guy I know. He is an absolute giant. So, he can melt my heart to butter in 2 seconds. Who is it for you? Physical. I told you that I like to swim. I told you that my goal is to swim 10,000 yards a week. I joined several years ago. I joined the Masters Swimming Club. You know what that is?
No.
It's old men swim team.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So it's a bunch of old dudes out there with beer bellies and just going, okay, here's how we get in shape, whatever, right? But you know what happens when you get into that, right? All of a sudden there's an actual workout that I have to do. I'm not just relying on myself doing laps. I'm not relying on myself showing up. Do you know what happens when I don't show up?
They call you.
I get a phone call, right? I get text the night before going, hey dude, you want to practice in the morning? All of a sudden, it's just harder to get away from. I made a commitment and these people are going, hey dude, we want you to be part of us, right? And this is not a slap on the back, right? This is not a stick going, hey, how come you're not here? Well, it is, but they're not mad at me. They want me to be a part of that world. And I choose to be a part of it. How about your business? Who's your business advisor? Do you have one? That gets a little harder. I might go as far as a CPA in there, although I could put them in the financial bucket as well. I would go to partners in your business for sure. You have partners, right? I would go again. All of these conversations, are they the best ones? There are. I'm sure you've been through this too. But I started Keller Williams in Bloomington with 3 other investors. Within 2 years, I bought all of them out. I'm like, no, we're not going to be in business together. And they agreed. And I have a different group now. A group that has synergy, a group that is growing together, a group that wants to move forward into other bigger projects together. That's who I want to be in business with. The hardest thing in the world is to be solo in your business. I've done it. I need these people to dream with, right? Is this right, Jesse? our best times, the best times that Jesse and I have together are just times when we're dreaming about what's coming next and where are we going and what could be. That to me makes a great business partner. So, page 93. You write down who your people are. If you don't have one, you get to write add by. And if you don't have one, what's the name that comes to mind that you want to put in that box? So you don't get the option to leave it blank. If you don't have one, you got to put in there who you want it to be. There you go. Did y'all get someone? If you don't know, right? I mean, it occurs to me that there's a lot of people that may not have a CPA or may not be thinking about a wealth advisor in terms of who can I go create an IRA with? Who would you talk to? How do you find those best people? What'd you say?
I said Northwestern Mutual.
Oh, see, there you go. And that's honestly, I would do the same. How do I find the best people? I would go find the most successful people that I know and ask them who they use. Because probably, not always, right, but probably they have somebody that's fairly competent. All right, last section on accountability is on page 95. So we talked about accountability being a stick. It's not really what it's designed to be. Accountability is really more designed to be awareness. Who keeps you aware of your goal? Right, and because when I'm aware of it, all of a sudden it shows up in me, right? I mean, there's a, it's real. Here's what an awareness conversation looks like. And what I like about this is, if you've ever shared somebody your goal, right? And you've ever had somebody come back to you and give you a hard time about it. I've had these people in my life that will give you a hard time about it. And I mean, not in a nice way, right? As in a more accusatory, hey, you're not really as cool as you thought, as you portrayed, right? This is the way the coaching consultation goes. And I'm telling you, right, I say it that way because I want you to remember this when you're having the accountability conversations with somebody else. This is not about hitting them with a stick, right? Those hurt. This is about how do you create awareness in their world. Here are the questions. What was your goal? You may already know the answer to that. Ginger reminded me, right? You're a year of Jubilee. I'm like, she's right. What was your goal? You know it. How did you do? Easy? You're going to get a pass-fail here, right? You're going to get a, oh, you know, I'm not on track at all, and don't bother me. It's not about that. It's about how do you feel. Remember from Bold. Well, how's it go? Emotion makes them act. Logic makes them think. Emotion makes them act. The feel component is critical in this question because how does that make you feel? If you remember earlier in these pages, we had the 4 bubbles, and one of them said, what's your goal? How are you doing? And then the other one said, how do you feel about that? Our feelings are super, super important on how they relate to our actions. So, how do you feel about that? When you let somebody just gloss through the emotion of this, Are you going to let them do that? What are you going to say to them? What's your new script? Tell me more. Seriously, this is the part where you don't get to let them just skate out on a generic, stupid answer, right? This is the opportunity for us to go deep and get figured out what's really going on. And then this is where the non-stick part comes in, right? Because we are going to, on some level, let them off the hook. Based on how you did, what is your goal and what do you need to do now? If you have a team, Jesse and I have this conversation all the time. We use CTE to track our weekly results, and right, we have some pretty big listing goals, and it's always a question. Based on how we did, what's our goal now? And we get two choices. We're either going to water down our goal and say we're not going to achieve what we said we're going to do, or we're going to hold it and we're going to figure out the tasks and the strategies needed to go achieve it. Right? So this is about how do we get there together. 2 next questions. Is there anything that might keep you from doing that? What kinds of things show up in that answer?
Limiting beliefs.
100%. So prepare yourself for a bigger conversation, right, when you ask that question. You already know the excuses that show up. Oh, my kid's sick. Oh, this or that. Oh, COVID showed up. Whatever, right? So be prepared to have the answers for the self-reflective questions, right? Not the stick. If you need training and support to do this, what might it be? If you're not achieving your goals, is it realistic to think that you might need some training or support? You know what nobody wants? Training and support. I'm chief among them. Right? I don't want to go ask anybody for help. And yet, if you opened up the possibility to, if you had to ask for help, what would you ask for? All of a sudden, people get an opportunity to look at the circumstance a little bit differently. Make sense? What do you hear about accountability? Ahas?
I like the stick analogy, but from a coaching perspective, it's not about getting hit with the stick, it's about holding the stick with a carrot on it.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have to be a negative, it can be a positive, it's just making sure you're aware of what you need to do to get to the next level.
Agreed. It's not a negative thing. This is all about how we go forward. Ahas about accountability?
The emotional aspect of it. How do you feel about where you are in it as opposed to just, how'd you do? Where are you at with it? Those are very cut and dry things. But when you say how do you feel about it, that's when you get to the point of like, I feel crappy because this is what I wanted to do and I realize that I'm here and I'm not happy about that. How do I don't know. Emotional stuff is a lot harder for people to address, but usually it's the root of the problem.
So with accountability comes freedom, more or less, is what you're saying? I mean, that's my takeaway from the day. Hold yourself accountable and you can have all the freedoms you want.
Yep. Actually might achieve something. It's good. Stephen Pressfield, this is called Turning Pro. This is all about how you go from an amateur. This guy is literally, this is about him becoming an author and him deciding that one day, hey, I'm no longer just a writer, I'm actually a professional, right? How do you turn pro? But it is powerful in shaping your mindset around, are you going to be a professional? I have a good friend of mine that's a real estate agent. His name's Robbie Osinga. And for 4 years now, he's come and told me this is a part-time. He's like, this is a part-time gig for me. I'm not really whatever. And as I look at this, I think of him and go, he needs this book. But that you can have. All right, you've seen most of my favorite books, or a few of them from the last year anyway. We've gone through the 6 perspectives. We talked first about committing to self-mastery and all the things that it attains, right? How do we discover our gifts? How do we commit to developing them in a way, right? We talked about What comes after? What comes after? What's next? 80-20. We talked about the 20% of our activities that give us 80% of our results. Easy, right? We talked about E2P, going from entrepreneurial, the things that come naturally, to the things, to being purposeful about becoming somebody that we are not necessarily today. Right? How do we continually raise that level of achievement? We talked about being learning based. How do we continually learn? How do we continually get ourselves in this spot of unconscious incompetence? I want to know what I don't know. Put it in my face and dare me to do something with it. We talked about limiting beliefs. The things that hold us back because we either can't think big enough or we've padded ourselves into these conversations that give us, that hold us, again, at a certain level of achievement. We really talked about unlimiting those. What's the unlimiting statement that you will give yourself that gives yourself the permission to move forward? And last of all, we talked about accountability. What's the importance of sharing it with somebody else? What's the importance of taking personal responsibility to getting stuff done? So, that's the 6 perspectives. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something to go home with that will say, I get just a little bit closer to who I was created to be. That's why I'm here, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Ginger, for having me.
Thank you.
I always enjoy it. So.
Thank you.